Chapter 960 Success. Chapter 960 Success. 95, 96, 97. As the saying went, to cover 90 miles out of 100 brought the traveler no farther than midway. Although only a few steps remained, these steps just so happened to be the most difficult to cross. In fact, calling it midway was already being generous. 98, 99. Ling Han faltered slightly. Then, he drew on all his power and took the last step. The overwhelming power that weighed down on his body instantly vanished. He immediately lost balance and stumbled forward a few steps before regaining his balance. This so-called island was incredibly small, measuring no more than 6 meters in radius. It was also extremely even, and appeared much like a large boulder with its tip cleanly cut off. There were a dozen or so earthen yellow mountain river stones scattered around this island. "Can't I pick up two or even more at once?" Ling Han bent down and grabbed a mountain river stone. Peng! A burst of power instantly erupted from the island and sent him flying outward, all the way to the bank of the lake. He plonked heavily to the ground. He scratched his head as he trained his eyes on the island once more. He wanted to visit the island again and use both his hand and blood-sucking origin gold to grab a mountain river stone. If he performed these two actions at once, would he be able to obtain 2 mountain river stones? However, several ill-meaning people were already glaring at Ling Han as they walked over. Although ordinary mountain river stones could arouse one's greed, they were still not valuable enough for people to fight over before so many others. Who could guess who would become the final victor? However, it was a different story right now. This was a mountain river stone with a special attribute. Special attributes in mountain river stones could bring permanent improvements to one's battle prowess. It could elevate one from a 1-star genius to a 2-star genius, or from a 2-star genius to a 3-star genius. Of course, such improvements definitely required more than one special mountain river stone. However, without the first mountain river stone, where would the second come from? Say, who could control their greed? Even if there was only a 1% chance, people would still take a punt on it. So what if you're a 4-star genius? Your true cultivation level, the early stage of the low extreme, is clear for all to see. At best, your battle prowess will only reach the early stage of the medium extreme. Many here have also reached this level. In fact, some have already surpassed it. Hand the mountain river stone over. The first person to act was an elder at the peak stage of the low extreme. With the help of a secret technique, his battle prowess soared to the peak stage of the medium extreme. The elder was confident that he could crush Ling Han. Ling Han didn't say anything nonsensical like "I obtained this mountain river stone, so what right do you have to take it?" He placed the mountain river stone in the black tower, and said calmly, "Take it if you can." In the martial arts world, only strength mattered. Only weaklings would yammer and complain. "Brat, don't ruin yourself." Several other people walked over, all of them individuals of an older generation. Right now, only cultivators with a battle prowess at the peak stage of the medium extreme had the right to fight over the mountain river stone. Without 5-star geniuses, 4-star geniuses at the peak stage of the low extreme were undoubtedly unrivaled beings in this place. There were 22 such people here, though only 7 of them had stepped forward. The rest remained put as 7 people were already enough to deal with the matter. Afterward, the most important matter would be deciding which of the 22 people the mountain river stone would belong to. Ling Han smiled slightly, and asked, "What's the hurry?" "Look, I'm planning to obtain another one. So, why don't you fight over it after I obtain a few more?" Fuck. Everyone looked at Ling Han dazedly. Is this person smart or retarded? Who would complain about not being robbed enough? And he'd even go out of his way to earn more resources so others could snatch more? The elders looked at each other and nodded. Ling Han wouldn't be able to escape anyway, so what harm could this do? "Leave that mountain river stone here, then you can go and retrieve the second one. No one will stop you." Another elder stepped forward, greed glistening in his little eyes. It would be a huge achievement if he could obtain a mountain river stone with a special attribute. He himself didn't have room for improvement, but his grandson was extremely talented, and could perhaps become a 2-star genius after absorbing the energy of an extreme weight mountain river stone. Originally, Ling Han hadn't wanted to waste his time on these elders. After all, his battle prowess was only 5 stars if he didn't use the ultimate arrow. Yet, these people were hell-bent on causing him trouble. It seemed like he had to show off his might. Ling Han retrieved his bow and pointed an ultimate arrow at that elder. A cold chill instantly gripped at everyone's heart, causing their bodies to tremble involuntarily as a feeling of uncontrollable terror formed in their minds. This arrow would definitely have an earth-shattering effect if it was released. I can only use this technique a limited number of times, Ling Han said calmly. However, I can guarantee that a person will die with each arrow I release. Who wants to try? No one dared to answer. Although they were a little doubtful, what if? The aura emanating from the arrow was indeed petrifying. It possessed an overwhelming might that seemed to be able to destroy everything in its path. No one was willing to become its first victim. So, does anyone else want to command me? Ling Han swept his gaze over the others, the tip of his arrow following his sight. Sweat poured down the faces of those who were targeted by the arrow. Although this arrow possessed an incredible might, everyone knew that Ling Han could only fire a few shots. There were more than 20 of them gathered here, so they definitely had the ability to capture and suppress Ling Han. However, who was willing to sacrifice themselves? No one. They weren't from the same clan, so why would they fight for the benefits of someone else? Even if they were from the same clan, there was still the problem of close relations or distant relations. Unless it was for their own child or grandchild, who was willing to risk their lives? The group of elders slowly stepped back. This was a sign that they wouldn't attack Ling Han. Of course, how long they would maintain this attitude was a completely different matter. Once they smelled a chance, they definitely wouldn't hold back. Ling Han also put his bow away. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to keep the existence of his Black Tower a secret, how would he need to worry about these people? He started to cross the lake again. However, he immediately felt an astonishing weight upon stepping onto the first stone. This weight was on par with what he had felt on the 80th stone during his first crossing. When he reached the 30th stone, he had no option but to stop and head back. If he kept going, he would only end up being pushed into the water by the gravity fields. Some breathed sighs of relief upon seeing Ling Han give up, while cold smiles appeared on the faces of others. He was only able to obtain 1 mountain river stone. In the end, he's still unable to compete against senior brother Zhao. Naturally, senior brother Zhao is the most powerful prodigy of these past 1,000 years, and there's a chance he'll reach the heavenly body tier in the future. He's not a 1 in 1,000-year prodigy, but a 1 in 10,000-year prodigy. Ling Han's merely an ant from a small world. Numerous people started throwing barbs at Ling Han. This was naturally because of their jealousy. Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun both walked over. Don't lose hope, Shui Yenyu said. You've already obtained 1 mountain river stone, and such a result is already outstanding. Moreover, you've only just reached the mountain river tier. You definitely won't be weaker than Zhao Lun when you reach the peak stage of the low extreme. Ling Han smiled, and replied, protect me for a while. I'm going to try again after refining a few mountain river stones. Chapter 961 New Attempt. Chapter 961 New Attempt. Ling Han didn't wait for Shui Yenyu's answer, and directly extracted the essence from a new mountain river stone. Of course, this wasn't the special mountain river stone that he had obtained recently. Rather, it was one that he had obtained from the group of 7 that he had killed. He had obtained a total of 2 mountain river stones from them, but as he had been busy with his journey, he hadn't refined the 2 stones yet. The eyes of the others became green with envy as they saw Ling Han refining a mountain river stone openly, and they could barely contain themselves, not dashing over and snatching it away. Fortunately, they were able to stop themselves when they realized that it was only an ordinary mountain river stone. Ordinary mountain river stones were only capable of reducing the cultivation time of cultivators. Although they were extremely valuable, prodigies weren't too fussy about the small amount of time that they could save. Only mountain river stones with special attributes could be considered precious treasures. They could genuinely raise one's battle prowess. Fearing Ling Han's battle prowess was only part of the reason that no one charged over. The other reason was because of Hu Feiyun. She was the ninth king. Thinking of the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire's fondness toward the ninth king, who would dare to disrespect her? Even the members of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire didn't dare touch the ninth king. It was much the same for the Eternity Sky and Jade Drop majestic empires. In fact, they even had to risk their lives to rescue her if she were to come across any dangers. After all, everyone was aware that the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire would definitely erupt in rage if the ninth king were to die here. She definitely wouldn't hesitate to bury everyone here alive as a tribute to the ninth king. There was no need for doubt the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire could definitely steel her heart to do that. Shui Yenyu wasn't stupid. It was impossible to come across Hu Feiyun during normal occasions. Now that she had such a great opportunity, she naturally had to act friendly with Hu Feiyun. The ninth king was charming and naive, and knew little of the world's dangers and evils. Before long, she had already fallen into a cheerful conversation with Shui Yenyu. Ling Han casually cultivated in front of everyone else. In the eyes of others, such action was crazy and rash. However, Ling Han was incredibly relaxed. This was because no one else knew that his physique had already reached the toughness of a level 2 godly metal. Who here could injure him? Even if they used divine flames, they would probably still need to refine him for several days, right? If they instead chose to use the most potent poison, it would still be quite a while before he was actually taken down by it. After all, the unique environment here guaranteed that Ling Han was almost completely safe. The mountain river stone in his hand was slowly becoming dimmer. Meanwhile, the large mountain in his dantian was rapidly growing larger. The lower one's cultivation level, the faster one's growth. When the mountain river stone became dull and brittle, the first mountain in Ling Han's dantian had already grown 100-fold. Now, it was finally starting to look a little bit like a mountain. I'm almost at the middle stage of the low extreme, Ling Han thought to himself. But this mountain river is already about to form and condense a river, so why is the mountain still so small? Is it because I'm relying on the mountain river stone to rank up? Whatever, everything will be fine as long as my battle prowess matches my tier. Ling Han stood up and started to cross the river again. This time, he charged to the 60th stone in one breath before finally slowing down. After raising his cultivation level, his improvement was especially clear. However, a feeling of strain once again overcame him when he reached the 90th stone. He pushed himself to take another step forward, yet all he could do was helplessly plop into the river. Ha ha ha. A few people immediately started to howl with laughter. They looked as if they were about to break into gleeful applause at any moment. However, looks of shock spread across their faces in the very next instant. It was because Ling Han was actually swinging his arms and swimming toward the island. Monster. He's definitely a monster. It wasn't that no one had thought of this before. Since they had made it more than halfway, why couldn't they swim forward? In fact, the distance was even shorter if they swam. The answer was simple. It was because this was actually more difficult, more than 100 times more difficult, to be precise. Swimming away from the island was extremely easy. Apart from the corrosive nature of the lake water, there wasn't even the tiniest bit of resistance. However, swimming toward the island was a completely different story. In addition to the threat of the lake water, there was also a terrifying resistive power. It was like a reverse gravity that was pushing one away from the island. Moreover, there was nothing to push off in the water, so it was naturally much more difficult to swim forward. It could be said that apart from being corroded by the lake water, it was basically impossible to move forward if one tried to swim toward the island. However, although Ling Han wasn't advancing, his body wasn't being corroded, either. This was far too astonishing. What kind of physique could resist the corrosion of the lake water? After swimming for a short while, Ling Han could only reluctantly turn back. The pressure was instantly lifted off his shoulders, and he made it back to the bank in no time. The clothes on his body had already transformed into ragged strips that were now peeling off and falling onto the ground. However, the unharmed muscles on his body radiated a divine glow. Ling Han retrieved a new outfit and quickly dressed himself. Being able to resist the corrosive ability of the lake water wasn't merely because of his strong physique. It was also because he had been channeling the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. This skill allowed him to resist all spells, and the corrosive lake water was nothing in the face of this powerful skill. "Heh! Have you guys not seen me before?" Ling Han chuckled. "Why are your expressions so weird?" Right now, both Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun's eyes were wide with disbelief. How could they not be astonished? The corrosive ability of the Crimson Lake was widely acknowledged to be terrifying. No matter who fell in, they would definitely lose a layer of skin. However, Ling Han had swum around it as if it were merely an ordinary lake. This was extremely astounding. Even the old fellows from before felt their hearts palpitate in fear. They were secretly thankful that they hadn't clashed with Ling Han just then. With such a powerful physique, who here could injure him? Ling Han sat down and retrieved the last remaining ordinary mountain river stone. After refining it, he would most likely be able to reach the island. He didn't hesitate any longer, and immediately started to refine this last mountain river stone. A few hours later, the mountain river stone in his hand once again crumbled into dust. During these several hours, many more people had arrived at this place. There were also some who left after realizing that they had no hope here. The physique that Ling Han had displayed was far too powerful, and it had caused a large majority of people to squash their wandering thoughts. However, a prodigy from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire was a part of the new arrivals. His cultivation level had reached the peak of the low extreme, and he was even a 3-star genius. After a Herculean effort, he had also managed to obtain an extreme weight mountain river stone. From this, it could be clearly seen that battle prowess wasn't the deciding factor that determined whether or not one could reach the island. There were numerous individuals who were more powerful than him, yet up until now, only he and Ling Han had succeeded in reaching the island. It could be seen that strength was the true might. That individual was named Yu Hao, and not only was he extremely powerful, but he also had 2 elders guarding him by his side. They both possessed incredible battle prowess, which resulted in the surrounding people not daring to act recklessly. There had been over 20 such elders not long ago, but almost all of them had left a short while back. There were only 7 of them remaining, and as such, they weren't confident of achieving certain victory in battle. As a result, they naturally didn't dare to recklessly charge into battle. Yu Hao appeared especially smug as he laughed loudly and swept his gaze around the surroundings. Who didn't know that being able to reach the island represented outstanding ability? Only a mere 10 or so people would be able to reach the island each time. Being imbued with the secret techniques of the old monsters was nowhere near enough. This was an extreme test of power. Congratulations, young master. The 2 elderly servants were all smiles as they congratulated Yu Hao. Yu Hao was extremely self-satisfied, yet a peculiar expression quickly spread across his face. This was because many people were naturally stunned speechless by his great achievement. However, there were also many people who remained calm and unmoving as if they hadn't seen his glorious feat at all. Are they blind? Little did he know that Ling Han had already succeeded once before. Although he hadn't succeeded on his second attempt, his actions that time were even more shocking than when he had succeeded. Right at this moment, Ling Han stood up. He had finally reached the end of the middle stage of the low extreme. He was only a tiny bit off from forming a river, whose formation was the boundary separating the middle stage from the late stage. Yu Hao chuckled coldly upon seeing Ling Han's movements. He had only just succeeded in reaching the island, and this person was already trying to follow in his footsteps. His actions were truly nothing more than a joke. P2E. You're biting off more than you can chew. Chapter 962 Reaching the Island a Second Time. Chapter 962 Reaching the Island a Second Time. However, much to Yu Hao's surprise, many people actually wore expressions of interest upon seeing Ling Han attempt to cross the river. Am I seeing things? A strong sense of jealousy welled up in Yu Hao's heart. He was the one who had succeeded in reaching the island, so why was everyone more interested in that person? Fuck. He hasn't even reached the late stage of the low extreme yet. He only has a mountain, but doesn't have a river. Could it be that he's a descendant of some powerful figure? Yu Hao was a small-minded person, and his expression instantly darkened when he saw that his thunder was stolen by someone who hadn't even reached the late stage of the mountain river tier yet. He secretly decided to give Ling Han a lesson when he came back. Anyhow, he wasn't a person from his country, so it mattered little even if he was a descendant of a powerful figure. Everything would be fine as long as he didn't kill him in front of everyone else. After experiencing a large growth in his cultivation level, Ling Han's speed was naturally quicker this time around. It seemed as if he were walking along flat ground, and the ease with which he advanced caused the onlookers to almost spit their tongues out in astonishment. One had to realize that this was the second time that Ling Han was attempting to reach the island. This was already on par with Zhao Lun. Moreover, when had Zhao Lun completed his grand feat of reaching the island 2 times in a row? It was when he was at the peak of the low extreme. In reality, no one was given any special treatment. The gravity fields bearing down on the stones were the same every time, so it was clearly advantageous to have a higher cultivation level. There was no notion of having it easier just because one was undefeated in their own tier. It was evident that Ling Han still hadn't reached the late stage of the low extreme yet. This meant that there was still room for him to grow stronger, and as such, it was completely possible for him to reach the island for a 3rd time, or perhaps, even a terrifying 4th time. Heavens! After arriving before the last 10 stones, Ling Han finally felt some pressure bearing down on him. However, he still took large and decisive steps forward. 98, 99, 100. He reached the island once again. Everyone was holding their numb heads. Both had reached the island 2 times, but Ling Han was even more freakish than Zhao Lun. If news of this traveled back, it was likely that the entire imperial capital would be stunned. It could elevate Ling Han's standing immensely, or it could also plunge him into a dark and bottomless abyss. Ling Han grabbed at a mountain river stone with one hand and tossed his blood-sucking origin gold outward with another in an attempt to obtain another mountain river stone. With his current ability, of course he could complete both these actions at the same time. However, when his hand and the blood-sucking origin gold came into contact with mountain river stones at the same time, the blood-sucking origin gold violently bounced up, and wasn't able to grab that mountain river stone. Peng! Ling Han was sent flying back to the bank of the lake again. This brat actually succeeded as well. A look of jealousy fell across Yu Hao's face. He had originally been unique and unmatched. Now, however, someone was standing neck and neck with him and stealing part of his glory. Being the petty-minded person that he was, he immediately walked up to Ling Han. He clapped his hands, and said, "Congratulations, congratulations. You've also managed to successfully reach the island after me. I've heard that the difficulty will significantly decrease for a short while after someone has successfully reached the island. In that case, you've benefited from my glory." The shamelessness of this person was quite startling. Was he purposefully playing down someone else's achievement to elevate his own standing? Those who had been here for a long time all started to roar with laughter. They had personally witnessed Ling Han reaching the island twice with very own eyes. What did reaching the island twice signify? At least in the past 1,000 years, only one other person had managed this feat, Zhao Lun. You've only reached the island once, yet you dare to say that Ling Han is benefiting from your glory? What an absolute joke. Embarrassment and anger appeared across Yu Hao's face. "What are you all laughing at?" he asked coldly. "Is there anything to laugh at? Young man, you're still unaware, aren't you? Before you arrived, our young friend Ling Han already reached the island once," an elder explained. As everyone here was at the low extreme, he didn't dare refer to himself as a senior even though he was clearly older. This was a rule of the martial arts world. Seniority could only be determined by ability. Yu Hao spluttered in shock as an incredibly colorful expression spread across his face. He was struck with disbelief. How was this possible? He was well aware that it would become insanely more difficult to reach the island after successfully arriving there once. It was simply an impossible task. In the past 1,000 years, only Zhao Lun had managed to accomplish such a feat. Once had to realize that Ling Han hadn't even reached the late stage of the low extreme yet. If all this were true, Then didn't this mean that there was a possibility of him reaching the island for a third time after leveling up to the late stage of the low extreme? Bullsh asterisk T. You're definitely spewing bullsh asterisk T. Yu Hao furiously shook his head. Hair. More people cracked up in mocking laughter. In fact, if they hadn't witnessed it with their own eyes, they also wouldn't have believed that Ling Han could possibly be so powerful. Hearing the mocking laughter of so many people, Yu Hao finally accepted the fact that he had made a great fool out of himself. His face involuntarily flushed red. He glanced at the island in the middle of the lake. Then, he gritted his teeth and dashed toward the stones once more. He was going to attempt reaching the island for a second time. He crossed the first 10 stones with great difficulty, but after that, his body would sway with each extra step that he took. Plop. In the end, he still fell into the lake. He instantly shrieked in pain, and started to hurriedly swim back to the bank. He had failed. As he had failed at a relatively early stage, he arrived back at the bank in no time. His wounds weren't too serious, yet the mental blow was significant. He was lesser than another person. That person was a whole 2 sub-minor levels below him, yet he had managed to reach the island twice. With such results as a comparison, it was abundantly clear who was more able. Ling Han merely flashed a smile at him. Being able to reach the island once was already a commendable feat. He withdrew his gaze and started to ponder how to reach the island a third time. With his current ability, it would be impossible. He could still spare a shred of power when reaching the island for a second time. However, he could at most only make it a third of the way if he made his third attempt now. Well, he still had 2 mountain river stones, ones with special attributes no less. Would refining an extreme weight mountain river stone here create some resistance to the extreme weight bearing over from the island? Let me refine another one and test this out. Ling Han retrieved a earthen yellow mountain river stone, and started to refine it in his hand. Many people looked at him with envious expressions. However, Ling Han's abilities and physique were clear for all to see, and Hu Feiyun was also standing just to the side. Most people only dared to think about but not act upon their greed. Young master, let's leave, the 2 elderly servants said to Yu Hao. They had a special mountain river stone on them, and such an item would attract greed from others. It was best to leave earlier. Yu Hao stared at Ling Han, and only nodded after a long time. Fine. If he refined the mountain river stone here, then it was extremely likely that he would directly break through to the medium extreme. As an end result, he would be targeted, and then killed, by the regulations of this place. It wasn't as if no one had tried this before. Ling Han continued to extract power from the mountain river stone. In his dantian, a river was slowly forming from nothing. No wonder mountain river stones are such hot property. Their effects are even more outstanding than amazing pills and medicines. Although the number of mountain river stones needed to level up would increase along with one's cultivation level, a maximum of 10 would probably suffice to help him reach the peak stage of the low extreme. Thankfully, mountain river stones could only forcefully form mountain rivers. They couldn't aid with one's comprehension, nor could they help one surpass a minor level. Otherwise, such items would be even more astonishing. To Ling Han's surprise, he discovered that a streak of earthen yellow veined pattern had appeared on the mountain that he had formed not long ago. It was very shallow in the beginning, yet as the power of the mountain river stone continued to surge in, this veined pattern also became deeper and deeper. This was a divine pattern. Chapter 963, Third Success. Chapter 963, Third Success. What was a god tool? If a divine pattern was carved on a weapon, then the weapon would release a unique might once the divine pattern was activated. Thereupon, the weapon would become a god tool. The materials used to craft god tools weren't limited to godly metals. It was just that metals were the most widely used material, and as a result, a large majority of god tools was made using godly metals. And now, a divine pattern had actually appeared on Ling Han's mountain river. This signified that, from a certain perspective, his mountain river could be considered as a god tool. An extreme weight god tool. He could activate the divine pattern with a mere thought, thereby imbuing his attacks with an extreme weight effect, which increased his battle prowess. A few hours later, The mountain river stone in his hand once again crumbled into dust. I'm almost 1/3 of the way to the late stage of the low extreme. As expected. The higher one's cultivation level, the more mountain river stones are needed to level up. In fact, the increase in mountain river stones needed is quite astonishing. When I reach the perfection level, I'll probably need hundreds of mountain river stones just to rise by a sub-minor level. Let me try again. He prepared to reach the island for the 3rd time. My God. He's trying to reach the island for the 3rd time? Everyone felt dizzy with disbelief upon seeing Ling Han step forward again. Oi, oi, oi. Is this real? Has anyone achieved this before? No, definitely not. Everyone shook their heads vigorously. Although very few people had managed to reach the island twice, there was always that one or two every several thousand years. During times when prodigies appeared in large numbers, perhaps 3 or 4 people would manage to reach the island twice within a century. However, there was no precedent of someone reaching the island 3 times. Yes, someone has, someone suddenly exclaimed firmly. Who? It was around 300,000 years ago. There was a tremendous prodigy. Shu Ran. Indeed, it was Shu Ran. It's rumored that he reached the island a miraculous 3 times. Afterward, he instantly shot to fame. However, he suddenly disappeared for some reason. Who's Shu Ran? Most people had never heard this name before. Ling Han couldn't care less about what others thought, and he calmly stepped onto the first stone. This time, he wasn't in a hurry to advance. Instead, he activated the divine pattern on the mountain river stone to resist the gravity fields. Wang. A gravity field was also unleashed from his body, though its effect was naturally much weaker than those that existed on the stones. However, it was still able to provide a certain degree of resistance. As expected, Ling Han nodded in his mind. Zhao Lun had most likely refined his mountain river stone after reaching the island for the first time. Then, he used his gravity field to resist the gravity fields of the stones, and was thus able to succeed in reaching the island for a second time. Of course, the main reason was still due to his powerful abilities. These special extreme weight mountain river stones could only add an icing to the cake. If one was too weak, their effect would be meaningless. Ling Han started pushing forward. The first 30 stones were extremely easy to cross. However, a look of exertion appeared on his face when he crossed the next 30 stones. Afterward, his body swayed with every step that he took. The 80th stone, he stopped on this stone, and sweat poured down his forehead. The godly bones in his body were all clacking under the immense pressure. Heavens! He's actually reached the 80th stone, he's only just advanced to the late stage of the low extreme. Gasp! He'll definitely be able to complete 3 visits in another 10 years. Everyone wore different expressions, many of them malicious. He was a super genius, so they definitely couldn't allow him to grow. Ling Han didn't persist. Instead, he turned around and retreated. He started refining his last mountain river stone. He was determined to plunder this island as if it were a treasure vault. After refining the mountain river stone, Ling Han reached 2/3 of the way to the late stage of the low extreme. This speed was incredibly terrifying. However, the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm only opened once every 10 years, and the number of people who could obtain mountain river stones was also very small. It was especially rare that someone could obtain 5 mountain river stones as he had. A second divine pattern appeared on the large mountain in his dantian. The power of the gravity field has doubled, Ling Han whispered to himself. Sure enough, the improvement at the start was the greatest. After forming the 3rd divine pattern, however, the power of the gravity field only increased by 50%. You can probably make it this time. There was an expectant look in Shui Yenyu's eyes as she nodded at Ling Han. Reaching the island 3 times is a miracle. Can this man perform a miracle? Ling Han will definitely succeed. Hu Feiyun had a blind trust in Ling Han's abilities. That evil beast before had been killed by Ling Han, so what difficulty did this pose? Ling Han chuckled, and said, of course. I'll definitely succeed this time. He stepped forward again. It was indeed different from before. He had 2 extreme weight divine patterns now, and when he activated them, they could provide a large amount of resistance to the gravity fields on the stones. Moreover, as his cultivation level had soared dramatically, his power had naturally also increased immensely. As a result, he was able to easily cross the first 80 stones. After that, his speed started to slow down. His expression became strained, but he still managed to reach the 90th stone in no time at all. The most important steps were these last 10 steps. This was the true challenge. 91, 92, 93. Everyone looked on intently. Were they going to see the birth of a legend? One had to realize that Ling Han still hadn't reached the peak stage of the low extreme yet. As such, he still had quite some room for improvement. If he succeeded this time, didn't that mean he could perhaps try to reach the island for a fourth time? This was far too terrifying. 97, 98, 99. He was only one step away. A smile spread across Ling Han's face as he took one last step forward. He had reached the island. Third success. Sinister killing intent instantly appeared on many people's faces, most of whom were from the Eternity Sky and Jade Drop majestic empires. It was very likely that such a genius could reach the heavenly body tier. Moreover, the increase or decrease in number of such cultivators could directly influence the strength of a majestic empire. They had to kill him before he became too powerful. Ling Han wasn't greedy this time, and only picked up one mountain river stone before being ejected back onto the bank. He immediately refined this mountain river stone and raised his cultivation level to a stage close to the peak stage of the low extreme. I only need 4 or 5 more mountain river stones to reach the pinnacle of the low extreme. However, even so, it's still impossible for me to break through to the medium extreme. After all, I've fully relied on external items to advance my cultivation level, yet my body doesn't have the corresponding comprehension. When I get back, I need to calm down and take my time to comprehend this cultivation level. However, the more mountain river stones I obtain, the better. I can use them for the medium extreme, high extreme, and even perfection level. It's best if they contain special attributes as well, for those can also elevate my battle prowess. Although Ling Han knew that it was close to impossible to achieve, he still tried to reach the island for the 4th time. It came as no surprise that he failed. In fact, he was a long way off, and only managed to advance a dozen or so steps. By the looks of it, I need to stabilize my cultivation level in addition to reaching the pinnacle of the low extreme if I want to reach the island for a 4th time. I only have a mere 10 years. Do I have a chance to enter here again? Ling Han felt that this wasn't likely. It was much more likely that he would make some preparations then strive to reach the medium extreme after leaving this place. This probably wouldn't take 10 years. Then I have to maximize gains this time. Chapter 964, Single-Eye Demonic Ape. Chapter 964, Single-Eye Demonic Ape. Reaching the island 4 times was unrealistic, so Ling Han could only give up. Shui Yenyu had also attempted to reach the island before, but she was only able to cross 80 steps even though she was extremely talented. It looked as if she was very close, but 20 steps was in fact quite a huge distance. Hu Feiyun also made an attempt under Ling Han's encouragement, and surprisingly, she actually succeeded. Moreover, she still had power to spare, causing the surrounding people all clicked their tongues in wonder. Sure enough, the 9th King who was highly regarded by the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire was not merely a naive and beautiful woman. Ling Han encouraged her to try again. Hu Feiyun had a blind trust in him as he had rescued her before. Thus, she quickly began her 2nd attempt. This time, it was clear that she was feeling much more strained. She stopped and retreated after crossing 60 stones. When seeing that she could advance as quickly as a rabbit, Ling Han instantly knew that she was still far from reaching her full potential. It was just that the 9th King didn't possess the mindset to endure pain, so her first reaction when facing difficulties was to retreat. Ling Han believed that even if she couldn't reach the island a 2nd time, reaching 90 steps was still completely within her capability. In fact, if she gritted her teeth and pushed forward, it wouldn't be too difficult for her to complete the grand feat of reaching the island twice. He believed that if the 9th King were someone else, they would definitely give it their best effort. First off, special attribute mountain river stones were extremely valuable. Secondly, reaching the island was also a tremendous honor. Moreover, who would dare target the ninth king? Ling Han involuntarily shook his head. Hu Feiyun was extraordinarily talented in martial arts, yet she lacked a competitive mindset. As such, it was possible that her future achievements might even be surpassed by Shui Yenyu. Let's go. Hu Feiyun was very satisfied that she had obtained a special attribute mountain river stone. She hadn't come here to train herself, nor had she come here for mountain river stones. Instead, she had only come because the Empress of the Chaotic Stars' majestic empire wanted her to do so, and she didn't want to disappoint her sister. What an innocent girl. With such a personality, she should have never taken a martial arts path. They left Crimson Lake and headed toward Flame Cave. Flame Cave was another location in this mystery realm that was certain to produce mountain river stones. Moreover, these were special attribute mountain river stones. They could provide cultivators with flame divine patterns, thereby imbuing their attacks with the might of divine flames. This was extremely powerful and useful. However, Flame Cave was far more dangerous than Crimson Lake, a place where people couldn't voluntarily advance or retreat. Flame Cave was like a demonic cave, and it was brimming with lava beasts, a type of demonic beast. They were born with the ability to control divine flames, which caused their battle prowess to exceed their cultivations by a full level. So be it if this was all. However, the most important point was that the most powerful demonic beast here had already reached the level of high extreme. This was extremely terrifying, and whoever came across them could only choose to flee. In fact, they might not even be able to escape. Of course, there was only one such demonic beast, the king of the lava beasts. This demonic beast barely ventured out, and would usually remain in the deepest part of the flame cave. However, if one were unlucky enough to run into it, they would definitely meet a wretched end. Of course, Ling Han definitely had to visit the place. He had the Black Tower, so he wouldn't be flustered even if he came across the king of the lava beasts. Anyhow, his physique was incredibly powerful right now, and there was no way he could be insta-killed by someone of the high extreme. How could he die when he had the help of the indestructible Heaven's Scroll? The three of them set off after studying their map for a while. Hu Feiyun had no enterprising spirit, so she couldn't care less where they went. She had come merely because the Empress of the Chaotic Stars' majestic empire had told her to do so. There was nothing more to it. Ling Han familiarized himself with the gravitational effects as he walked. This was so he could fuse it into his battle prowess. Even though I have 3 divine patterns, it's still not enough to elevate my battle prowess by 1 star. The higher my battle prowess, the harder it is to elevate it by another star. The number of stars will only go up if I increase my battle prowess manifold, perhaps even several dozen times. However, the divine patterns of gravity can produce wonderful effects if used properly. The so-called star geniuses aren't absolute, either. For example, I have a 90% chance of success if I ambush someone at the perfection level of the low extreme with my annihilating dragon star arrow. However, can I say that my battle prowess had reached 9 or even 10 stars? These numbers can only be used as rough estimates. Whoosh! A fierce wave-like fluctuation suddenly appeared in the dense forest ahead. Ling Han and Shui Yenyu immediately stopped, yet Hu Feiyun was completely oblivious and continued forward for a few steps, only stopping when she realized that both Ling Han and Shui Yenyu had already stopped. She turned around and asked, "Why did you both stop?" Shoo, shoo, shoo. 3 people suddenly dashed out from the dense forest, all of them extremely disheveled and one of them drenched in blood. All 3 of them sprinted toward Ling Han and the others as if their lives depended on it. Ling Han didn't dare let his guard down. It was possible these 3 people were being pursued, yet it was also possible that they were merely acting, with their true aim being to ambush Ling Han and the others. One had to be extremely careful in mystery realms, otherwise, they would die without even knowing what had happened. Peng! At this moment, a gigantic beast also charged out from the dense forest. It was a giant ape that was around 30 meters in height. It was almost as tall as the trees in the dense forest. Its body was raven black, and it looked like a magnified version of an ape. The only difference was that it had no eyes, bar for the vertical one on its forehead. This eye was extremely large, and almost took up half of its face. Who? The gigantic ape grabbed the person who was closest to it. Its body was 30 meters tall, yet its arms were surprisingly also 30 meters long. Its hand instantly arrived behind that person's back. "Fuck off," the person screamed in shock and terror. They instantly unleashed their strongest sword strike. Pu. The gigantic ape completely ignored this attack, and firmly gripped the person's body. The sword slashed into its palm, yet it was merely able to cut off a few strands of hair. The gigantic ape casually tossed the person into its mouth. Crack. The person was immediately crushed into 3 segments. Blood sprayed through the air as their head and legs fell from the corners of the gigantic ape's mouth. However, the gigantic ape curled its tongue around them, and immediately swallowed them into its belly. That was a cultivator at the peak stage of the low extreme, yet they had died just like that. Single-eye demonic ape. Shui Yenyu exclaimed in surprise. When mature, it can reach the peak stage of the high extreme. We're definitely no match for it. Run. As she spoke, the gigantic ape had already caught up to another person, and tossed them into its mouth. A cold chill shot down Ling Han's spine when he witnessed this sight. Although he liked eating demonic beasts, he was definitely no fan of eating in such a bloody manner. Those who weren't brave enough would definitely wet their pants in fright. "I can't move," Hu Feiyun stammered in a shaky voice. She was a timid person, so it was already praiseworthy that she hadn't wet herself yet. "Run away with her first." "I'll hold it back for a while," Ling Han said to Shui Yenyu. "No, this gigantic ape is too strong," Shui Yenyu said in a resolute voice. "There's no way you can hold it back by yourself. I'll help you." Women are so troublesome. However, Ling Han had to admit that he was slightly touched by her actions. Before such a terrifying gigantic ape, how many people could utter the words "I'll help you"? Chapter 965, Flight. Chapter 965, Flight. "You two really love each other," Hu Feiyun interrupted in a very untimely fashion. Ah. Ahead of them, the last member of the group of 3 was also devoured in a single bite by the giant ape. The big guy had obviously not had his fill yet, as his large eye focused on Ling Han and his companions, revealing a sinister light. "Run." The 3 of them quickly broke into a run. Don't underestimate Hu Feiyun just because she looked completely like the type to be a burden. Her movement technique was frighteningly quick. She was directly a whole position faster than Ling Han and Shui Yenyu. The moment they started running, she was already in the lead, and took a position far ahead of them, looking like she would be leaving them in her dust at any moment. Faster, faster. The ugly monster is about to catch up. And she still managed to turn her head around to urge them to be faster, wearing an expression that clearly expressed her thought. "Why are the 2 of you running so slowly?" Hong. A pillar of light shot out of the giant ape's lone eye. It was filled with destructive ability that would bring about ruin, and shot towards Ling Han and Shui Yenyu. That was because the 2 of them were practically running side by side, and this pillar of light was wide enough to hit them both at the same time. Ling Han made a decision on the spot. His feet paused slightly, and then he delivered a palm strike right at Shui Yenyu's back. A gentle but massive energy surged out, which caused Shui Yenyu's figure to speed up suddenly. But with this slowing down from him, the pillar of light instantly caught up with him. Peng! A thunderous bang rang out. The ground shook, and dirt and soil shot skywards. With the impact of the light pillar as the center, the ground itself was caving in, forming a gigantic deep pit. "Ling Han!" Shui Yenyu exclaimed in shock, tears brimming in her eyes. How would she have thought that Ling Han would give up his life in a critical situation just to save her? Hu Feiyun stopped as well, and consoled Shui Yenyu. "Don't worry, Ling Han would be fine. He has even killed the large evil beast." If she knew the truth, she would naturally not be so confident. Xiao, a human figure shot out of the dust cloud. Who else could it be but Ling Han? As he ran, he said, "What are the 2 of you standing around stupidly for? Are you waiting for that huge demonic ape to make you into appetizers? I heard demonic apes are very perverted, so take care that you will not be captured to become his wife and bear him a pile of little monkeys. Ling Han. Shui Yenyu was immediately gritting her teeth. And to think she was touched, sad, and furious all at the same time. But in the end, this guy was not only completely fine and unharmed, he was actually starting to mock her. Run! Ling Han called out quickly. Previously, he had only ducked into the Black Tower, and had not killed off the giant ape, yet those two still had the mood to stand and chat idly. Peng, peng, peng. The giant ape rushed out of the dust cloud as well. As the single eye swept over them, it couldn't help but look confused. Hit with a blast from it, this tiny human was actually still capable of running around in such a lively manner. After a momentary pause, it again ran out in pursuit. Ling Han and his companions continued to run. As they fled, they searched around for a hiding place. There. Ling Han pointed to their left side. There was a field of rocks there, forming a very complicated terrain. Furthermore, the demonic ape was too big, so they could just make use of this place as a spot to play hide-and-seek and shake it off their tail. They quickly changed their course and raced over. Shio, shio. The lone eye of the demonic eye glowed, and once more shot out destructive pillars of light. In the end, with Ling Han's weaving in and out, all missed their target. In truth, Ling Han very much wanted Hu Feiyun to take it on once. Who knew, it might actually summon out the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, just like how they had killed the 3 demon wolves. However, it was a huge question mark how many times they could actually use this move. What if it didn't work? Then, Hu Feiyun would really die because of him. Besides, the fact that the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire did not kill him once did not mean that she would not the next time. The might and intent of a ruler were difficult to predict. Last but not least, or rather most importantly, Hu Feiyun was running faster than a rabbit, so how could he make her be hit? Thankfully, they managed to escape into the pile of haphazard boulders in time. Indeed, the giant ape was greatly affected. Its body was too large, so it could not squeeze into the narrow paths formed by the craggy boulders, nor could it endlessly blast out attacks. However, the boulders here were really sturdy, actually being capable of enduring the mad attacks of this demon ape. Even so, the shock wave created by the streams of power was still an ordeal for Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun, who both felt like they were about to throw up blood. Only Ling Han looked like he was completely unaffected. Only when an attack from the high extreme landed on him directly could it actually deal him damage. What could the shock wave from an attack do to him? He guessed secretly that the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire would not appear as long as Hu Feiyun was not in a life-threatening crisis. Hu Feiyun's battle sense was not strong, but she was very skilled in running away. She pointed ahead and exclaimed, There. There was a mountain cave there. With how sturdy the boulders here were, as long as they managed to hide in the mountain cave, the giant ape would not be able to do anything to them. The single eye of the giant ape swept over, and it realized what they were planning. Instantly, it showed its might repetitively as its single shot out pillars of light like crazy. This took a great effect on Ling Han and his companions, shaking them so much that they were falling and stumbling over their own feet. Go! Ling Han grabbed Hu Feiyun, who had been sent flying over from ahead, and tossed her into the mountain cave first with a strong throw. Then, he took a large stride to the left, and pulled Shui Yenyu into his arms. The physique of these two women was not on the same level as his. Suffering the impact from the shock wave left by the light pillars attacking, their movement techniques were completely interrupted. Hong! The giant ape had also grabbed at them, wanting to capture both Ling Han and Shui Yenyu in a single move. In your dreams, Ling Han humphed. Pressing his left hand, he caused the divine patterns of gravity to take effect. Wang, the large hand that the giant ape had stretched out, was instantly affected. With a bang, it fell, missing Ling Han by nearly 1 meter. The wind the impact produced caused his clothes to flutter. Ling Han did not have the time to let go of Shui Yenyu. Clasping her, he scrambled into the mountain cave. Ang! The giant ape released a furious roar. It could crush these little worms who knew how many times with its power, yet it actually did not manage to capture a single one of them on the whole way here. It was about to go mad with fury. It dug at the opening of the cave furiously, wanting to dig out the mountain cave by force. Yet, its brute force had lost effect at this time. This mountain cave was incredibly sturdy. It crouched down, stretched out a long and wide finger, and poked it into the cave opening. Quick, quick, quick. Ling Han retreated, continuing to circulate the divine patterns of gravity with all his might to affect that huge finger whilst he continued to urge Hu Feiyun to run faster. There is a turn ahead. Hu Feiyun called out in pleasant surprise, and hurriedly followed it. Ling Han quickly retreated back in as well. Ultimately, it was he who was affecting that huge finger, or they would have long since been chased down. Peng! The giant ape did not know that they had turned. Its finger continued to move ahead, and soon hit the stone wall at the end of the path. The impact was enough to cause this giant ape to roar out in pain. The rocks here were really too hard. Only then did it realize that Ling Han and his companions had turned. It quickly crooked its finger and started digging again. Retreat, retreat further back, Ling Han called out. We can't, we're at the end. Hu Feiyun called out from behind them. Her back was already stuck onto the wall. Peng! Ling Han crashed into her, and then he squeezed back as much as he could. The finger of the giant ape was still digging, and was just half a meter away from them. They could clearly see the sharp claw on the finger. If they were directly touched, even Ling Han would be injured despite his physique. The sharp claw of an immortal-level demonic beast was on par with godly metal of the same level in the first place. It was also a very valuable material. After all, there was only so much godly metal available. You're about to squeeze me to death, Hu Feiyun shouted. Ling Han's back was completely pressing down on her breasts. This cave was really too narrow. There was absolutely no way for two people to stand side by side, and they could only pile up one on top of another. And now, Hu Feiyun was at the bottom, Ling Han was in the middle, and Shui Yenyu was in front, and he still had his arms around her. Pervert. Only now did Shui Yenyu have the time to open her mouth and exclaim in low voice, her tone filled with embarrassment. Ling Han was momentarily stunned, and only now did he realize that he had grabbed a not too appropriate place. It just so happened to be the tall mountain peaks on her chest. Who asked their size to be just right for his large hand to grab securely? Chapter 966, Damn Pervert. Chapter 966, Damn Pervert. I didn't notice. Ling Han quickly loosened his grip, but the mountain cave was too narrow, so he could not withdraw his hand. He could only move it slightly downwards so that his hand was on Hu Feiyun's lower abdomen. He could not stretch it forwards. Did he want to be grabbed by the giant ape? Shui Yenyu was so embarrassed that even her ears were red, her whole body was soft and weak as if it was about to melt into a pool of water. Was this man born to bully her? Previously, he almost saw her completely naked, and he even took a bite at her breasts. Now, he was pressing, embracing, and touching her for such a long time. He was practically going to know her 3 sizes better than she herself did at this rate. After all, she would not deliberately touch herself all over like this. Pervert. She could only rebuke in this manner. After all, she could not allow him to take advantage of her and do nothing, right? You're crushing me to death. Hu Feiyun was still calling out. Ling Han kept pressing down backwards, and behind her was the wall, so even breathing was difficult for her. Thankfully, this demonic ape does not have any technique to become smaller. Otherwise, if it really came in, we would really become an easy target, Ling Han said. Of course, if this demonic ape really became smaller and chased over, he still had the Black Tower, though he probably would not be able to draw Hu Feiyun in, not because she would be devoured by the demonic ape, but because the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire would come out to save her. After the giant ape dug for a while, it withdrew its finger. Yet Ling Han and the others had not yet breathed a sigh of relief when it once again began digging as if it would stop at nothing until it captured Ling Han and his companions. Isn't it just having 3 bites less? Is there any need to be so stubborn? Ling Han mocked with a shake of his head. Glutton. Hu Feiyun rebuked self-righteously. After a while, the giant ape stopped. Yet Ling Han and his companions dared not be careless. Otherwise, if the giant ape began to dig again all of a sudden, they would be done for. However, this time, it seemed like the giant ape had left, or perhaps actually did not make a move for quite some time just to deliberately give them a false sense of security. It was complete silence inside the mountain cave. Though it was very dark in here, Ling Han and his companions were all elites of the immortal level, and they had completely no problem to see clearly in complete darkness. Ling Han felt slightly awkward because now that the critical situation was resolved, his attention could not help but scatter. There was a beautiful figure leaning against his back, and in his arms, there was a similarly seductive beauty. Moreover, Hu Feiyun kept twisting her body here and there endlessly because she could not get her breath, which caused Ling Han Oriat suffering. She couldn't test his will like this. Everything was normal about Ling Han's body. Moreover, Helian Zun Shui had left him for more than 2 years, and he had kept himself pure for all this time, so his fire was naturally burning even fiercer. His ability to resist was very strong, but his bodily reactions were another story. In the beginning, Shui Yenyu only felt a little discomfort. There was something hard pressing against her, but no matter how inexperienced she was still a woman, and there was a lot of things that she knew without needing to be taught. Realization dawned on her, and she was instantly both embarrassed and angered. This pervert, this shameless bastard, actually dared bear unseemly thoughts towards her at this time. This was really wrongful accusation of Ling Han. Mentally, he truly did not have any devious thoughts. It was just that with a beauty in his arms, and another one at the back, anyone who did not have skewed thoughts at this point was either an eunuch or had to be gay. There was only a little reaction from him, and he did not make a move. It really showed how amazing Ling Han's ability to resist was. Pervert, I'm going to kill you. Shui Yenyu squeezed out through her clenched teeth. Big sister Shui, what did he do to you? Hu Feiyun asked curiously. How could Shui Yenyu actually bear to say it? She only humphed, and said, this guy is really not a nice guy. Hu Feiyun felt very confused. Ling Han was very nice, wasn't he? He'd saved her previously, and even dashed out bravely with no thought for his personal safety just now. Where else could such a nice guy be found? Yet Ling Han was angry as well. He didn't even do anything to her. In this kind of situation, he had only reacted a bit. Who asked him to be a man? He leant close to Shui Yenyu's ear, and said, if you insult me again, I may do something to you. Damn pervert, you are the one doing something bad, and you will not let others speak of Wu. Shui Yenyu was just about to cast out another rebuke, yet had not expected that Ling Han would suddenly bite down on her earlobe. Instantly, a numb feeling spread through her whole body, causing her mind to go completely blank, and she did not have any more thoughts. Peng, the giant ape's claw once again stretched back in. A powerful wind rose up, which suddenly caused her to come back to her senses. Evil villain, she rebuked once more. Yo, you've learnt a new phrase to use as insult. Ling Han laughed loudly. Since you've already called me pervert and evil villain, then I'll just simply act like a pervert for you to see. He pressed down the hand that he had lowered previously, and once again grabbed that bountiful peak. Abruptly, Shui Yenyu's whole body stiffened, and her brain immediately stopped functioning. You still have such a strong reaction, Ling Han mumbled. She already knew his secret of possessing a spatial god tool, so there were only 2 choices left to him, either kill her, or make her his woman to ensure that the secret would not leak out. He chose the second option. The giant ape was still wreaking havoc. Hu Feiyun was still completely baffled, but Ling Han and Shui Yenyu both felt like they were in the clouds. The danger seemed to have disappeared, and the only thing they could feel was the raging sensation circulating inside their bodies. After who knew how long, the duo still did not realize that the giant ape had not come to disturb them for a very, very long time. It wasn't until Hu Feiyun shouted repeatedly that she couldn't bear it anymore that they finally awoke from their state of inattention. Ling Han said, I'll go out and take a look. The 2 of you stay here. He circulated his origin power, and his whole body cracked. His body changed shape, and, squeezing against Shui Yenyu, he came to the front. Carefully, he exited the cave. Shui Yenyu bit down on her lip. Even without looking in a mirror, she knew that her beautiful face had to be frighteningly red because she felt bouts of heat as if she was going to burn up at any moment. She actually allowed that guy to take liberties with her, and she actually felt a bit of enjoyment from it. This was really too shameful. Come on out, that demonic ape has left. Ling Han's voice was heard from outside. Hu Feiyun pushed Shui Yenyu a bit, and only then did Shui Yenyu finally regain her senses. She took a step and walked ahead. After they left the mountain cave, she kept her head very low, not daring to even look at Ling Han. What's wrong with big sister Shui? Hu Feiyun did not understand what was going on. She stayed too long in the cave, so she has twisted her neck. Ling Han casually came up with an excuse. Yet Hu Feiyun did not doubt him, and quickly said, Big sister Shui, is it very serious? Shui Yenyu raised her head, and glared harshly at Ling Han. Then, she finally replied, I'm fine. That's great. Hu Feiyun clapped her hands. This ninth king was really kind. However, in the martial arts world and furthermore, in the center of power, this kind of kindness would only bring her disaster. Thankfully, she had the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire to shelter her from the wind and rain, so there should be no one that would dare have designs on her. Let us continue on our way. After they distinguished their direction, they once again headed out towards the flame cave. After 2 days' journey, they stopped to take a break. Hu Feiyun, who had been pampered and spoiled since childhood, was completely unable to take the hardship of extended periods of travel. Ling Han started a fire to cook. After entering into the mystery realm, he had not had time to refine the spiritual meat at all. Otherwise, if he could cultivate his 9 dragons tyrant body art to immortal level as well, his strength could still get an additional boost, and there was hope that his strength could break through the height of 5 stars. It would not improve his thunderclap 9th heaven or his 3 styles of black origin, because those were stimulated through the use of origin power. However, the might of this ultimate arrow could be boosted a bit, and there was hope that he could break through to be on the same level as a 7-star genius in a head-on battle. Chapter 967, Bearing Kids. Chapter 967, Bearing Kids. After their meal, they decided to rest and reorganize for 6 hours so they could recover to the prime condition. Ling Han pulled Shui Yenyu into a corner inside the forest. Since that incident inside the mountain cave, they had yet to speak to each other. What exactly do you want to do? Shui Yenyu stared at Ling Han. What do you mean, what do I want to do? Ling Han asked, smiling. Don't play dumb. You have repeatedly taken liberties with me. Whom do you take me for? She appeared very angry. Ling Han couldn't help but smile, and said, I'll take you as my wife. Shui Yenyu's pretty face flushed. The word wife had stabbed right into her vital point, causing her imposing manner to drop greatly. She raised her jade-like neck, and said loftily, Don't forget. We are only pretend lovers. What are you joking about? I never do this kind of stupid thing, Ling Han said, smiling. You are my wife, and there is no way you can renege on it. Do you think I will yield? Shui Yenyu looked very tenacious. Ling Han pressed his hand forward, and held her against a large tree, saying, What do you think? Shui Yenyu could not help but blush, and said, You pervert, must you grope me? Ling Han laughed, and said, You are my wife, and it is my responsibility to grope you. Shui Yenyu could not help but want to smack him. He was obviously taking advantage of her, yet described it in so honorable a way. Yet, she was no match for Ling Han's overwhelming strength, and could not struggle free even when she was held against the tree trunk. Additionally, there were waves of heat surging inside her body, which she seemed to enjoy slightly. Girlie, give me a smile. Ling Han gripped her chin, and raised her delicate, alluringly beautiful face. Pervert, she mumbled, yet Ling Han captured her red lips, and kissed away her words. Ling Han's mouth was kissing her, but his hands were not doing nothing, either. They continued to conquer the various sensitive parts of her body, causing Shui Yenyu's delicate figure to completely sink under his control. This is really enchanting, and could become an addition, Ling Han said right into Shui Yenyu's ear. Shui Yenyu's beautiful eyes were as lovely as water in spring. She rolled her eyes harshly at Ling Han, and said, You are the emperor of a small world, and must have multiple wives and concubines. What number wife would I be, then? Ling Han deliberately stretched out a hand, and began counting on his fingers one by one. After a long while, he still had not finished counting. This made Shui Yenyu anxious. How many harems do you have that you have not finished counting all of them even after so much time? Ling Han laughed, and said, at the moment, there is only one. There is also another waiting to be married, and aside from them, there is only you, who delivered yourself to my door. Of course, he had not counted Li Sai-chan, Liu Yutong, and Zhu Xian'er in the bundle. Though he was not a master of romance, he still knew that the less female friends he had, the better. Furthermore, Shui Yenyu had only asked him how many wives he had, and he answered truthfully. There was indeed only Helian Zun Shui, and he had yet to find Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Who delivered herself to your door? Shui Yenyu raised a fist and punched his chest. He. Ling Han kissed her again. In terms of mere beauty, she was not the slightest bit inferior to Zhu Xian'er and Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Furthermore, she was a natural beauty. The moment one was unguarded around her, he could be enchanted by her at any moment. In the imperial capital, only the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire was slightly superior to her. Unfortunately, no one had ever managed to pluck the beautiful moon that was the Empress, and they could only admire her from the ground. Ling Han's heart clenched. Why was he thinking about the Empress again? Incredible, she was really incredible. It had obviously been so many days, and he was not sure what the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire even looked like, but that extremely graceful impression of her was emblazoned deep into his bones, and would occasionally resurface on its own. The greatest beauty in the world was definitely not mere rumor. Shio, it was at that moment that the large tree they were leaning against suddenly moved. A few branches twisted around each other to form a long spear that suddenly shot at Ling Han's back, wanting to pierce right through the both of them. Ling Han laughed mischievously, and said, "You finally could no longer bear it." He stretched out a hand and pressed down. His power of gravity took effect. The tree spear immediately dropped straight down, and heavily crashed into the ground. Shui Yenyu was instantly shaken out of her stupor, and hurriedly pushed Ling Han aside. She asked, "What's going on?" "Nothing." Ling Han had just gotten addicted to kissing her, and was just about to kiss her again. Shio, 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 a few hundred branches waved at the same time, stabbing or twisting towards Ling Han and Shui Yenyu. "The demonic tree!" Shui Yenyu exclaimed in shock all of a sudden. Only now did she recall what Ling Han had said previously, and she couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "You have long since known that this was a demonic tree?" Ling Han's right fist clenched, and peng, slammed into the tree trunk. His strength now was really too terrifying. One punch, and the demonic tree instantly snapped in half. Green liquid immediately sprayed out in all directions. This demonic tree was only in the low extreme. How could it possibly be a match for Ling Han? Of course. Otherwise, why would I not choose any other tree except this one? Ling Han asked, smiling. Shui Yenyu was practically rendered speechless. It had been a very romantic situation, and you actually chose a demonic tree purposely as your background. She really had no idea what was going on inside this man's head. "Let's have kids," Ling Han said. "At first, it was to deceive your father, but if your stomach keeps being so flat, the deception would definitely not last long. Have them yourself." With a flutter of her sleeve, Shui Yenyu left. She was really going mad with anger. Ling Han sighed. With his current ability, it was naturally very easy for him to suppress Shui Yenyu, but why was it so difficult to make her docilely obey him? The two of them returned, and saw that Hu Feiyun was already sleeping deeply beside the bonfire. Their footsteps actually did not startle her awake. "I really don't know why Her Imperial Majesty would feel at ease letting her come here." Shui Yenyu's whole face was filled with confusion. She thought that with how overprotective the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire was towards the Ninth King, this should not have been the case. Ling Han did not speak about the scene he had witnessed. She was actually capable of summoning a sliver of the might of the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, and in this place, was the truly invincible one. They, too, rested for a while. Sleep was truly the best way to adjust, and nothing could replace it. After resting enough, they continued on their way. After another half a day's time, the flame cave was already within sight. The flame cave was in a huge mountain, and its entrance was an extremely large mountain cave. The ground all around it was completely red, and lava could vaguely be seen flowing underneath the ground. Without entering, they could already feel the extreme heat and high temperature from afar. If a gust of wind blew out of the cave entrance, even their clothes would be charred, and it was possible that their hair would begin burning. Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun already activated their origin power to form a defense around their bodies to resist the heat. Only Ling Han acted like he felt nothing. However, his clothes could not endure it, so he was also compelled to use his origin power, or he would be running around naked. In the future, he would have to find immortal-level material to make a robe that could resist all kinds of poor environmental conditions. Otherwise, he would have to face the awkwardness of being stripped at any moment. The two of you had better stay here. I'll go in alone, Ling Han suggested. Hu Feiyun quickly nodded. She did not have the slightest bit of initiative, and her greatest dream was to spend her days in peace. Yet Shui Yenyu shook her head, and said, I want to go in. Chapter 968, Flame Cave. Chapter 968, Flame Cave. Shui Yenyu looked soft on the outside, but was tough on the inside. She looked as lovely as water, but once she had made her decision, she would definitely be determined and would not be swayed. Since Shui Yenyu wanted to go with Ling Han into the Flame Cave, Hu Feiyun would naturally not dare to stay outside alone. So, in the end, it was still the three of them going in together, and they headed towards the cave. Hong, a surge of flames would occasionally burst out of the ground, exuding a frightening wave of heat. This occurred without any semblance of regularity, so it was impossible to predict and avoid ahead of time. Furthermore, if one was unfortunate enough to take a step right when the flames burst out, they could only evade. If they could not, they would have to depend on their own abilities to bear the flames head-on. The might of the flames was extraordinary. For example, if Shui Yenyu was hit, her beautiful face would turn pale. Hu Feiyun, on the other hand, had extremely fast reaction speed. The moment that there was unusual movement underground, she would have already quickly shot up. Even Ling Han considered his own reaction speed slower than hers. They entered into the cave. They could hear deep growls of beasts occasionally ring out inside the cave, but it was very difficult to tell which direction they had originated from. Upon a closer look, there could be mountain river stones in every corner here. However, they may not be of the fire element. Those can only be found in the innermost depths of the cave, Shui Yenyu said. Although she had come here once, her cultivation level 10 years ago was really too low, so she had not entered into the flame cave. It would be fine as long as they were mountain river stones. Ling Han had already had a taste of them. They could really make the cultivation level of a cultivator soar. Even if he had to spend several years to stabilize his cultivation level in return, he would still be able to save a very, very great amount of time. You think there's something that can be picked up anywhere? Shui Yenyu rolled her eyes. She seemed to have found enjoyment in bickering with Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly, but did not start bickering with her. Firstly, because they were in a dangerous situation, after all, and secondly, he was more willing to use his mouth rather than words to shut her up. This cave was very big. Its height reached more than 30 meters, and walking inside would give one a feeling of emptiness. There were stalagmites protruding from the ground. Each was bright red, and there were some that were still dripping lava. They were a very magnificent sight. There were paths stretching out in all directions, with innumerable forks along them. These forked paths were slightly smaller, but they were still 6 to 9 meters tall, and were still very amazing. Because the dangers of this place were not at such a controllable level as the Crimson Lake, there were obviously fewer cultivators who had made their way here. At least the trio had walked for quite a while, but had yet to spot any person. Another reason was because this place was too big. Even if several hundred people came here at the same time, the moment they separated, it would be very difficult to reunite. One had to know that the total number that had entered the mystery realm was no more than 2,000 people. Pa, pa, pa. A strange sound was heard coming from up ahead. Ling Han and his companions became alert. Hu Feiyun even gripped onto the corner of Shui Yenyu's sleeve, her expression saying, if there's danger, you'll help me block it. Very soon, a red shadow appeared in front of them. It was a very large demonic beast. its height close to 3 meters. It was completely crimson, and its skin was like lava. This monster was incredibly hideous. It did not have any neck at all, and merely had a squarish body from which there was a head sticking out. Its 4 legs were thick and short, making it look a little like a tortoise, but it did not have a tail. It looked at Ling Han and his companions, and its large mouth split open. Drool dripped from its mouth, but its saliva was actually bright red lava. The moment the drops of saliva dropped onto the ground, a sizzling sound was heard. "This is a lava beast?" Ling Han asked. "Probably." Shui Yenyu nodded. In truth, she had not seen one herself, either, but there were no other types of demonic beasts here. "So ugly," Hu Feiyun said quietly as if she was afraid that the demonic beast would hear her. "It's fine. The demonic beasts here do not seem to have awakened their intelligence, so they can't understand human words at all," Ling Han said, smiling. Even if its intelligence had awakened, it would have to learn human language first before it could decipher the words of humans. Of course, if it used divine sense to transfer a message, then it could skip over the language barrier. Roar. The lava beast growled deeply, its eyes as large as copper bells glowing fiercely. Peng, peng, peng. It moved on its 4 legs to charge towards Ling Han and his companions. Even though its legs were short, it was really not that slow in an all-out dash. "Let me." Shui Yenyu stepped out, sword in hand. She was the type to want to be the first. Previously, Ling Han was the one shouldering all the dangers they had faced, so she'd felt quite suffocated. Now, this lava beast was merely in the late stage of the low extreme, so she was naturally eager to give it a try. Pu. The lava beast's mouth spat out fierce flames, which instantly raised the surroundings' temperature considerably. Shui Yenyu did not take the attack head-on. Instead, she made use of her nimbleness to twist around to the side, and brandished her sword, unleashing a swift stab. The lava beast's reaction was somewhat slow. It was suddenly pierced by the sword, but its defenses were quite amazing. The sword could only pierce into it for about an inch or so. In view of its colossal body, this was still very far from hitting its vital points. Feeling the pain, the demonic beast was enraged. It continued roaring, and endlessly charged towards Shui Yenyu. The demonic beasts here were indeed a little stupid. They were battling completely based on instinct. Thus, even with the thick and tough skin, along with the might of flames, it did not manage to get an upper hand at all. Instead, Shui Yenyu managed to take advantage of it multiple times with a strike here and there, and its blood continuously gushed out like fierce flames. "Good strike! Good strike!" Meanwhile, Hu Feiyun was cheering on Shui Yenyu from the sidelines, but did not forget to hide behind Ling Han. She poked her head out, waving her arms around in excitement. Ang! Just at this moment, they saw yet another lava beast appear, this time behind the trio. After releasing a roar, it proceeded to bite at Hu Feiyun. Who asked her to be the nearest? Hu Feiyun's reaction was something to worry about. She actually stood there dumbly without any reaction. However, Ling Han was not her. His right hand clenched into a fist and shot out. He did not bother to use any kind of technique, and merely used his brute strength to emerge victorious. Peng, his present strength was really too powerful. One punch, and the lava beast could not bear it at all, even despite its powerful physique. It directly exploded from the impact. Ah! Only now did Hu Feiyun exclaim in surprise, and patted her chest repeatedly as she said, "Scared me to death. Really scared me to death." Ling Han looked around for a while. All demonic beasts had spiritual meat, and this lava beast was no exception. The spiritual meat was merely about the size of a segment of the little finger. It was slightly red, but its main part was still white. It was like a beautiful piece of jade that had merely been dyed with a red blush. "Big sister Shui, go." Hu Feiyun began cheering for Shui Yenyu again. The enemies were both lava beasts, and while Ling Han managed to turn one into pieces with just a punch, Shui Yenyu was in a drawn-out battle. The difference was really huge. Ling Han did not step in, though. Instead, he stood on the side. This was his form of respect for Shui Yenyu. After a long time, Shui Yenyu finally finished off this demonic beast, and dug out a piece of spiritual meat. She shook her head, and said, "I'll just leave the demonic beasts later to you." "Why?" Ling Han asked, smiling. "I am just wasting your time," she said with a sigh. "You don't have to comfort me. I know my own abilities." Ling Han smiled. This beauty was eager to perform, but was not the type to cling blindly to her pride, which was something that he admired very much. "Then let's continue." The trio continued their advance, and searched around in the cave for more than 4 hours. They dealt with over a dozen lava beasts, and obtained a great amount of spiritual meat. Furthermore, Shui Yenyu had a burst of good fortune, and actually found a mountain river stone in a crack in the wall. The lair of that lava beast should be right up ahead. There vaguely seems to be a frightening aura of intimidation spreading out from within. Shui Yenyu pointed ahead with a finger, and asked, "Are you really going to take the risk?" Ling Han nodded, and said, "I will not force myself. However, going in to steal the mountain river stone would probably startle the huge monster. It is not safe for the two of you to be here. Go out immediately." Shui Yenyu pondered for a moment, and then said, "All right. You have to be careful." Chapter 969, Blinded. Chapter 969, Blinded. After Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun had left, Ling Han finally began to seriously observe the cave ahead. This cave was very big, and because there was lava flowing in the underground river, it was not dark. However, it was not all that bright, either. He spotted a colossal lava beast in the innermost depths. An ordinary lava beast would only be about 3 meters tall and 6 meters wide, but this one was as tall as 15 meters and as wide as 30. Its skin was also darker, and covered with strange patterns. At this moment, it was sprawled out, sleeping. Its mouth was open, and there was lava-like saliva dripping onto the ground from it. The lava beast king. Its aura was extremely powerful. Even at such a far distance, its aura caused Ling Han to shudder, with his hair on ends. The late stage of the high extreme peak stage, or it might have even reached consummate level. Subjected to Ling Han's stare, this beast king suddenly woke up with a start. Snapping open its eyes, it raised its head and swept its surroundings with a suspicious gaze. However, after completing its scan, it did not discover anything off, and lowered its head and once again began sleeping. Hoo. Its snores were thunderous. Ling Han appeared out of the black tower, and wondered how he was supposed to grab the mountain river stone. Was it possible to obtain it through force? Ling Han estimated his own battle prowess. Presently, his cultivation level was close to the peak of the low extreme, whereas his strength was close to reaching the peak of the medium extreme, and when he used secret techniques, his battle prowess could reach the peak of the medium extreme. He had yet to reach the high extreme. Yet the other party was very likely in existence on the consummate level, and had formed 4 mountain rivers. Merely in terms of strength, it would absolutely crush him. No matter how tough his physique was, if the difference in strength was too large, then he would not be able to get close enough even with the indestructible Heaven's Scroll to speed up his self-recovery. One hit, and he would be smacked onto the ground. If he approached rashly, he would only be thrashed for nothing. Most importantly, where was the mountain river stone? What meaning would there be in beginning the fight when he had yet to figure that out? A thought flashed in Ling Han's mind. What if he summoned the annihilating dragon star arrow? Though the battle prowess of this beast king was extremely frightening, it was so laid back that it seemed like it did not have much vigilance. It was practically a live target. Let's test it out. He drew out his bow, activated the ultimate arrow, and used the Eye of Truth to find the weakness of this beast king at the same time. Yet the lava beast king suddenly stood up. True, it was lazy, but this kind of powerful existence always had an instinctive reaction to danger. If another being in close proximity bore killing intent towards it, it would be able to sense it, what more when it was being targeted by an arrow. Tong, tong, tong. It immediately ran in the direction of the cave's opening. The patterns on its skin glowed and interwove with the divine patterns of fire, capable of melting gold and erasing bones. But when it ran to the cave's opening, it did not discover anything. This made it very confused. It had clearly sensed a powerful danger, so why did it not find anything? Could it be that it had played too madly with a small beast the day before and had not rested enough, so its senses had malfunctioned today? It slowly walked back, and sprawled back down to sleep. There. However, in the Black Tower, Ling Han's eyes lit up. There was an unusual stone underneath the Beast King. Unlike other stones that were bright crimson, this one was completely black. It was practically the only spot of green among millions of flowers. That was how obvious it was. And on this stone, there were 7 crimson-red stones scattered all over. Even at such distance, Ling Han was sure that those were mountain river stones. Moreover, they were mountain river stones with a unique elemental alignment, and possessed the power of flames. Now he knew where the mountain river stones were, but the question of how to obtain it was a big problem. Let's continue. Ling Han exited the Black Tower, and once again summoned a bow and circulated the annihilating dragon star arrow. Ang! The Beast King was again startled, and ran out to investigate. However, it naturally returned without success. Ling Han began playing a game of hide-and-seek with it. After more than a dozen times, this Beast King was practically doubting life itself. When Ling Han once again summoned the annihilating dragon star arrow, it merely raised its head to cast a lazy look, but did not get up. The feeling of danger disappeared again. The Beast King sprawled out to sleep. It could almost confirm that this had to be its misconception. It had surely played around too much. Once, twice, and thrice. The Beast King's reaction became more and more careless, and in the end, it couldn't even be bothered to raise its head, and merely blinked its eyes in reaction. And right at this moment, Ling Han released a fatal strike. Xiao, the divine arrow shot out, as quick as lightning. The Beast King suddenly opened its eyes, and when it discovered that rapid stream of light approaching, it was finally greatly alarmed, and hurriedly began to get up. The patterns all over its body began glowing, and interwove to become flames. However, it was too late. If it had reacted when Ling Han drew back the bowstring, then with its powerful abilities, it would have definitely been capable of making full preparation. Without speaking of anything else, merely with its whole body of glowing patterns interweaving to become flames, perhaps the whole arrow would be directly melted, becoming a pool of liquid metal. Yet now that the annihilating dragon star arrow was shot, it still wanted to dodge. What a joke! Perhaps cultivators of the Sun Moon tier would be able to, but this Beast King definitely was not. Pu. The black arrow had already shot into the eye of the Beast King, and even the tail of the arrow had disappeared. Ang! The Beast King released a furious roar of pain. Pa! The divine patterns on the arrow exploded, forming a terrifying destructive ability. A quarter of this Beast King's head had exploded into nothing, and blood spurted out in all directions. A few broken bones could still be seen. It was really unlucky. If it had not opened its eyes, then the eyelid would have at least provided some protection, but now, it was its eye itself that took on the might of this arrow directly. While it was a Beast King in the consummate level of Mountain River tier, so what? However, the Beast King was still the Beast King, after all. Even after taking a shot like that, it did not die. Its single remaining eye focused on Ling Han. It had finally discovered the culprit that had injured it. It roared in fury, and, moving its 4 short legs, charged towards Ling Han. Hong, long, long. Every step it took shook the ground so much that it seemed like the entire cave was trembling. All the patterns covering its body were completely lit, and interwove to become divine flame, enough to turn a cultivator in the low extreme or even the medium extreme into ash. I'm not playing with you anymore. In a flash, Ling Han's figure had instantly disappeared from sight. Where was he? The Beast King pounced, and searched endlessly, its single eye shining with a frighteningly menacing light, yet it did not find anything. It was incredibly furious. A quarter of its head had been destroyed. It was a great injury, which caused it to feel both agony and fury. But what could it do if it could not find the culprit? After searching crazily for a while, it could only retreat back. It had to get its injuries under control as soon as possible. Otherwise, its life would be in danger. However, just at that moment, that despicable human appeared once more. Another arrow was notched, and he was planning to shoot it again. Instantly, all the hair on the Beast King was raised on end if it had any. It quickly stood up, with divine flames interweaving all over its body, and assumed a defensive stance. Ling Han was only putting on an act. He had just shot out an annihilating dragon star arrow, and all the stamina in his whole body was expended, so how could he fire another shot now? But it was fine even if he couldn't. This Beast King had already become easily frightened due to its past experiences. Just acting like he was going to shoot was enough to scare it to death. Meanwhile, Ling Han was using true origin stones to recover his origin power. Stamina could recover slowly on its own, and though there were no means to speed up the recovery rate, it recovered at a much faster pace than origin power. At most, in a few dozen breaths' time, he would be able to recover to his prime condition. But what about that Beast King? The moment it wanted to heal its injuries, Ling Han would pretend that he was about to shoot an arrow as a scare tactic, causing it to immediately feel alarmed as if it had seen a great enemy. The more he repeated it, the more blood it was losing, and the worse its condition was becoming. Chapter 970 – Greater Danger Lies Behind. Chapter 970 – Greater Danger Lies Behind. It was a Beast King in the consummate level, but it had just advanced into this cultivation level. Though it had formed 4 mountains, it merely had 3 rivers, and the 4th mountain was clearly slightly smaller. In this mystery realm, consummate level was practically invincible, but at present, this powerful Beast King was being played around with in the palm of Ling Han's hand. It was only a breath away from death. After Ling Han had drawn the bowstring for who knew how many times to threaten it, this Beast King was already too weak to activate the divine flame. Its whole body was sprawled on the ground, and it merely released angered growls from its nostrils. However, its intimidation aura had already ebbed away like waves. The Beast King, at this time, was like a phoenix that had lost its feathersnow match for even a chicken. However, as the saying went, a centipede died, but never fell down. What more when it was a consummate level Beast King. Its battle prowess was possibly 2 or 3 stars higher than its actual cultivation level. As long as it had not breathed its last, one should not underestimate it. Ling Han did not make any rash moves. His stamina had already recovered completely, and his origin power was also close to complete recovery with the aid of true origin stones. Hence, he naturally would not mind wasting a bit more time on the Beast King. The Beast King was panting, its single eye still bearing a ferocious look, but its vitality was becoming dimmer and dimmer. How much longer would he have to wait? Half a day, a whole day, or 3 days? Even if such a powerful demonic beast was about to die, it could possibly take a considerable number of days to actually die. Ling Han did not have much patience. He feared he would be expelled by the mystery realm the moment time was up, and by then, the 7 mountain river stones underneath the beast would have nothing to do with him. He decided to take a risk. His confidence lay in his powerful physique and recovery abilities. He walked towards that Beast King. 7th uncle, this time, we've brought the crimson ground locking net. We will definitely be able to subdue that Beast King. In the flame cave, there were 4 people currently journeying towards the innermost depths of the cave. This group of theirs was considerably powerful. Any demonic beast they encountered would only be killed instantly under their combined forces, so there were almost no pauses in their advance. The clan has prepared more than 1,000 years for this, and finally successfully forged the crimson ground locking net. As long as it is in the net, it would be forcibly be suppressed onto a lower minor level. An old man smiled, stroking his beard. Among the 4 of them, only he had a head of white hair. The other 3 were all young men. However, their cultivation was not weak. The one with the lowest cultivation level was still in the late stage of the low extreme, while the remaining 2 were in the peak stage of the low extreme. Otherwise, they would not have been able to sweep aside all obstacles on their way here. If Ling Han saw them, he would realize that these 4 were from the Luo clan. Before entering the mystery realm, they had clearly exposed their killing intent. However, after entering the mystery realm, they appeared randomly in separate places, which gave them no opportunity to meet. Damn it, we did not encounter that ant from a small world all this while, a young man said suddenly. You don't have to take it to heart. Even if we did not encounter him, so be it. In any case, the Dark Knight Hall has already accepted the mission, That brat will definitely not be able to escape his death. The priority this time is to kill that beast king in order to obtain the Flame Mountain River stones, the old man said seriously. Yes, the other 3 young men replied solemnly. Although this elder's talent was not high, and he only became a 4-star genius through secret techniques and could not possibly ever have any further room for improvement, his abilities were firmly above them at least for now. Furthermore, he had sacrificed the little opportunity he initially possessed to advance for the sake of contributing to the clan, so he had to be respected. The old man nodded, and said, "That beast king is in existence at the peak stage of the high extreme. Even if it is weakened by a minor level, it is still at the peak stage of the medium extreme, and the lava beast, by nature, can use divine flame. The battle prowess of the beast king should still reach the early stage of the high extreme, so we must not be careless. Rest assured, 7th uncle. We all have god tools in hand, which would be enough to raise our battle prowess by another star. As long as you tie down the beast king and distract it, we will be able to deal it a severe injury and forcibly drag it to death," a young man said. "Ian, what is important is this kind of determination." The old man was very pleased. Ling Han drew near, yet the beast king did not have much of a reaction. It was as if it was so severely wounded that it did not even have the strength to raise a paw. "Hehe, if you keep on playing dead, then I will directly deal with you." Ling Han concentrated his divine sense, and suddenly delivered an attack with the 7-kill subduing soul technique. It was not of much use before, as the beast king's cultivation level was too high, so its divine sense was naturally superior to his. If he'd used a spiritual attack against it, he would likely have been thrown back with an agonizing pain in his head as if it was about to break apart. But it was different now. This beast king was already at the end of its rope, so its divine sense was already in extreme decline. Hong! The beast king suddenly raised its claws and smacked out towards Ling Han. This strike was still extremely forceful and fierce. "Haha, I scammed you all the time, so I'll take a strike from you head-on once so that you will not feel wronged in death." Ling Han did not duck into the Black Tower. Instead, he delivered a full-force strike to counter the attack. Wang, his palms shone with brilliant golden light, and earth-overturning seal activated, forming multiple divine patterns on his palms. Peng! He took the attack from the Beast King head-on, and his whole figure was instantly sent flying. The strength of both sides was completely on different levels. Ling Han's body slammed into the cave wall, and bounced back. He sprawled down on the ground, opened his mouth, and spat out a mouthful of blood. He wiped the corner of his lips, and felt as if all the blood in his body was boiling, which was a great suffering. As expected of the consummate level, your strength is truly amazing. Ling Han got back up. Pa, a few dislocated bones instantly popped back into place. His physique was really too powerful. Even the strike from a consummate level demonic beast was unable to break his bones, and merely dislocated some of his joints. Of course, this was also because the Beast King was severely injured, and could not possibly release its most powerful strength. The Beast King's single eye stared at him. Its gaze was filled with shock, confusion, and fury, but there was also a sliver of defeat. Its full power blow still could not kill this human. Dying in the hands of this human, there was no injustice. In the first place, it was already dying, and after releasing a full power blow, it was adding salt to the wound. It could not even manage to open its eye anymore, and its single eye slowly closed again. "I shall send you on the last lap of your journey." Ling Han shot out an attack with the 7-kill subduing soul technique, and stunned this Beast King, taking it into the Black Tower. He would use his supreme power to kill this Beast King so it needed not suffer any further. Ling Han's gaze turned towards the 7 mountain river stones on the black stone, and a smile floated on his lips. After searching so hard and for so long, it was finally time for him to reap his rewards. Achem! His sensitive divine sense had discovered an odd movement, and he immediately turned around. Shio, 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 shio. 4 people suddenly pounced inside through the entrance, 1 old and 3 younger. Each one of them held onto the corner of a huge net, and with the stimulation of their origin power, caused this giant net to exude a crimson light. They were naturally the 4 members of the Luo clan. They had taken out the crimson ground locking net at the entrance, and activated it ahead of time. Then, they leaped in, wanting to ambush that Beast King and use this divine net to entrap it. But only after they suddenly rushed in did they discover that there was no sign of the Beast King. Instead, there was merely a young man staring at them. "It's you." The 4 suddenly recognized him. Wasn't this precisely that ant from a small world? Ha 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 ha, this is really traveling far and wide to look for you, only to find you easily. One of the young men laughed loudly. Chapter 971, Trapped. Chapter 971, Trapped. Mountain River Stones. Meanwhile, the eyes of the old man from the Luo clan were burning with desire as he stared at the 7 mountain river stones. There were a whopping 7 special attribute mountain river stones. If these were all used on a single individual, the Luo clan would be able to raise a super genius. That was unlike him, who could only remain at the low extreme forever even though he was a 4-star genius. He was merely a freak who had been forcefully raised specifically for exploring this heavenly sea mystery realm. In this world that was brimming with immortal level cultivators, what good was a battle prowess at the peak stage of the medium extreme? What the Luo clan needed was someone with a battle prowess at the sun-moon tier, or perhaps even the heavenly body tier. 7 special attribute mountain river stones could elevate one's battle prowess by 1 star. His was a certainty when going from 1 star to 2 stars. However, it was less certain when trying to go from 2 stars to 3 stars, or from 3 stars to 4 stars. Naturally, it was harder to advance the more powerful one already was. To 4-star geniuses, 7 mountain river stones might not even be enough to elevate their battle prowess by half a star. Regardless, special attribute mountain river stones were precious treasure, and also the main objective of their journey. The 4 people from the Luo clan didn't wonder where the Beast King had gone, nor did they think about why Linghan had appeared here. They didn't care. How mean, retrieve the mountain river stones, the old man from the Luo clan instructed. Luo Haomin hurriedly nodded. Yes, 7th uncle. A look of excitement spread across his face as he walked toward the pitch-black boulder. He was given priority nurturing in the Luo clan, and had received such nurturing 1,000 years or so before Luo Ba and Luo Lai. In terms of talent, however, he was actually slightly inferior to Luo Lai. Among those who received priority nurturing, his importance was also ranked behind Luo Ba. However, Luo Ba was already dead now, so his position naturally shifted upward. He had the right to obtain these special attribute mountain river stones. Oi, oi, oi. Don't stick your hand out to take what's not yours. That's the behavior of thieves and bandits, Linghan said with a smile. His body flashed away at a speed faster than Luo Haomin's. Since I'm here, what right do you have to keep them? The old man from the Luo clan sneered. He let go of the huge net and lunged toward Linghan. He didn't take Linghan seriously at all. Linghan was merely at the shattering void tier 1, and it was meaningless even if he was invincible in his own tier. After all, that was only limited to the level of mere mortals. Against someone of the immortal level, such cultivation was truly nothing to behold. Linghan didn't retrieve his bow. Instead, he used his body as a bow and his origin power as an arrow as he fired a shot toward Luo Haomin. What level had his power reached right now? Near the peak stage of the medium extreme. Thus, even though he didn't use a bow and an arrow, the might of his annihilating dragon star arrow still reached the peak stage of the medium extreme. Luo Haomin also didn't pay Linghan much heed. After all, he still had his 7th uncle supporting him from behind. He was only focused on the 7 mountain river stones. This was an incredible amount of wealth, and truth be told, he couldn't earn this much even if he was sold. He completely ignored Linghan's attack, and continued dashing forward. How tremendously quick was the annihilating dragon star arrow? Pu. The origin power arrow instantly pierced Luo Haomin's back and exited through his chest. The origin power of the arrow was almost exhausted, and the entire arrow immediately vanished into thin air. How is this possible? Luo Haomin slowly turned around, and tried to grab something with his hand. However, Before he could even extend his arm outward, his body had already started to collapse. Peng! His aura vanished as he crashed to the ground. He, a one-star genius at the peak stage of the low extreme, was actually killed with a single strike. The old man from the Luo clan was both furious and shocked. He had already caught up to Ling Han, and he roared in anger as he threw a fist toward him. "You killed someone from my clan, so it's only fair if I kill you too. Die," he bellowed. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "You're not powerful enough." Then, he also raised a fist, and swung it toward the old man from the Luo clan. Peng! The old man from the Luo clan was instantly sent flying by the impact of the strike. He was indeed at the peak stage of the low extreme, and was indeed a 4-star genius. However, this didn't mean his power could definitely reach the level of the medium extreme. Wasn't he seeking death by fighting Ling Han head-on? Ling Han lowered his fist, and calmly continued toward the pitch-black boulder. The 3 people from the Luo clan all wore expressions of shock and disbelief. Ling Han had merely been at the shattering void tier when he'd entered this mystery realm. They were unable to fathom how he had suddenly become strong enough to send a powerful cultivator at the peak stage of the medium extreme of the mountain river tier flying after only 10 days or so. Mountain river stones. The old man from the Luo clan suddenly came to a realization. Only mountain river stones could allow cultivators at the shattering void tier to easily advance into the mountain river tier. Moreover, their cultivation would advance rapidly, and they wouldn't come across any bottlenecks before the peak stage of the low extreme. Gasp! How many mountain river stones did this brat obtain? The 2 youths from the Luo clan also realized this fact. Raging jealousy welled up in their hearts. They had already entered this mystery realm dozens of times, yet they had only managed to obtain 3 mountain river stones in total. Moreover, those 3 were just ordinary mountain river stones. Activate the crimson ground locking net. Capture him. The old man from the Luo clan didn't dare underestimate Ling Han anymore. This ant from the small world had already been incredibly powerful at the shattering void tier. Now that he had reached the mountain river tier, his abilities before he reached the medium extreme would be on par with cultivators who were truly at the mountain river tier even if he had only ranked up thanks to the effects of the mountain river stones. One had to realize that this brat had passed 8 levels of the Academy's assessment when he entered the Scarlet Heaven Academy. He had the potential of a 4-star genius. The 3 people spread the huge net toward Ling Han. Ling Han immediately put the 7 mountain river stones away. He definitely couldn't allow them to be snatched from him. However, after putting them away, there was already no time for him to dodge. As a result, he was covered by the net. Ling Han was slightly astonished as the huge net radiated with a power that forcefully suppressed his cultivation level. He was already close to the peak stage of the low extreme, yet right now, his cultivation level was just at the early stage of the low extreme. Ha ha ha. The 3 people from the Luo clan roared with laughter. This was the Crimson Ground Locking Net, and it was forged specifically to target the Lava Beast King. The Luo clan had poured a huge amount of resources into forging it. However, this would all be worth it as long as they could capture that Beast King. After all, if they succeeded, they would be able to obtain an endless supply of special attribute mountain river stones this time, then the next time, and yet the next time afterwards. Even the Beast King was no match for this net, much less Ling Han. Now that he was inside the net, he was nothing more than a trapped beast. Brat, hand over the mountain river stones. If I'm in a good mood, I might even gift you a swift death, one of the youths said. His name was Luo Jian. He dared to kill members of the Luo clan, so it's not excessive even if we dice his body into 10,000 pieces. It's a shame we can't do this publicly, the old man from the Luo clan said regretfully. They could kill him in this mystery realm as doing so would be relatively obscure and hard to verify. However, publicly killing a student of the Scarlet Heaven Academy? They could try if they didn't want to stay in the chaotic star's majestic empire anymore. Then we'll slowly refine him. A cruel smile appeared on Luo Jian's face. He knew that Ling Han's physique was incredibly tough. It was on par with a level 1 godly metal. Die. The old man from the Luo clan retrieved a sword that had numerous veined patterns on its body. It emanated a brilliant glow as he activated it. This was a level 1 god tool, and the clan had only bestowed it to him for the sake of this journey into the mystery realm. He raised the sword and stabbed it toward Ling Han's heart. Chapter 972, I merely have a spatial god tool. Chapter 972, I merely have a spatial god tool. Pu. The tip of the sword pierced through the net, aiming at Ling Han's chest. The cruel smile on the old man's face instantly transformed into a look of astonishment. His sword hadn't been able to penetrate Ling Han's body. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, "Sorry for cultivating my physique to such a powerful state. I've disappointed you. Fuck. So smug." The old man from the Luo clan continued to stab with his sword, yet his attacks were naturally useless against Ling Han's powerful physique. How could he possibly wound Ling Han? The old man wore a look of shock and disbelief. They had already used the crimson ground locking net, yet they were still unable to dispose of this ant from the small world. "I won't hold back if you continue stabbing at me." Ling Han chuckled. "You're trapped by the crimson ground locking net, so how are you going to escape?" The old man forcefully calmed himself down. Even the lava beast Kingwitch was at the peak stage of the high extremaculdanty break free from this net, much less Ling Han, who was only near the peak stage of the low extreme. Otherwise, wouldn't the Luo clan be too foolish to spend so many resources? There are countless underground lava lakes in this place. Moreover, they're all extremely hot, and they're even capable of melting godly metal. Why don't we toss him into one? Luo Jian suggested. Brilliant idea, brilliant. The old man from the Luo clan clapped in excitement. The three people all looked at Ling Han and hoped to put some pressure onto him. In reality, they were only making empty threats. What would they do if the crimson ground locking net melted after they tossed Ling Han into a lava lake? If the net melted and Ling Han also turned into dust, then wouldn't the Luo clan have suffered a double loss? Ling Han grinned and said, "Are you guys trying to scare me? I can't be bothered messing around anymore." His figure flashed as he entered the Black Tower. Then, after a split second, he immediately exited again. His action was so rapid that those who didn't have a keen eye definitely wouldn't have been able to catch it. The huge net slammed into the ground. What? The three people's eyes bulged in disbelief. This was completely beyond their comprehension. How could something like this happen? He escaped from the crimson ground locking net that easily? How did you do that? They stared at Ling Han in absolute shock. They had to ask this question regardless of whether Ling Han answered or not. Otherwise, their shock would definitely continue to chew away at their minds. "Oh," Ling Han said casually, "I have a spatial god tool. Just then, I entered it momentarily, then came back out. Your net lost its target, so it naturally fell to the ground. That's all there is to it. Spatial god tool." The three people from the Luo clan almost bit their tongues off when they heard this. Precious treasure. It's definitely a precious treasure. Thump, thump, thump. Their hearts beat in excitement. How was this ant from the small world in possession of such a valuable treasure? Well, this wasn't important. What was important was that this treasure now belonged to the Luo clan. Ling Han raised his fist and chuckled. "Do you think I'll let you live after learning of my secret? You've even set your eyes on my treasure. There's definitely something wrong with your brains." The three people shuddered. This ant from the small world was far too unpredictable. Not only did he possess a powerful tier-surpassing battle prowess, but even his physique alone was powerful enough to make one feel despair. Perhaps only demonic beasts at the high extreme would pose a threat to him. Flee. The three people immediately turned around to run. As long as they left this mystery realm, the Luo clan would definitely do everything in its ability to capture Ling Han, even if it meant having to flee from the chaotic star's majestic empire. This was a treasure that could only be forged by great elites of the Genesis tier, so perhaps they would even be able to obtain the method for reaching the Genesis tier. There was nothing wrong with this line of thought. After all, how could an ant from the small world possibly have become so strong? As long as the Luo clan could endure for a few thousand years, there would eventually come a day when the entire joint peace planet submitted to their prowess. Even the empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire would become their plaything. One had to admit, the empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire was far too enchanting, and the minds of these people would involuntarily wander to her even when they lusted in their minds. Ling Han unleashed his 7-kill subduing soul technique, and Luo Jian instantly fell into daze. Then, he was dragged into the Black Tower and killed. Immediately afterward, Ling Han unleashed his annihilating Dragon Star arrow. Whoosh! A dazzling streak of light flashed past and struck another youth of the Luo clan, causing him to shriek in pain as he collapsed to the ground in agony. Shio! Ling Han charged toward the old man. Fear gripped at the old man's heart as he glanced backward. "Brat, you're the enemy of our Luo clan," he shouted. "What? You still wanted to drink tea with me?" Ling Han sneered. "You're not worthy." He drew his bow and fired another arrow. This wasn't the ultimate arrow, yet with his current strength, it was still extremely terrifying. Most importantly, it was extremely quick. The old man from the Luo clan hurriedly tried to dodge. There were innumerable rock columns and corners in this cave, so there was no shortage of locations where he could hide. "How long can you hide?" Ling Han continued to fire arrow after arrow. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Sparks flew all over the place as the origin power arrows collided with the rock columns. Fortunately, the environment here was extremely stable. Otherwise, the rock columns would be directly punctured when struck by the arrows. The old man didn't dare appear before Ling Han. This made him feel extremely distressed. He was a 4-star genius at the peak stage of the low extreme. Theoretically speaking, he was invincible among the cultivators in this mystery realm. Now, however, he didn't even have the right to battle Ling Han head-on. "Why is it like this?" Ling Han held onto his sword as he walked around. "Old dog, come and fight me." The old man hurriedly started fleeing again upon seeing that Ling Han had stopped shooting. However, Ling Han unleashed his 7-kill subduing soul technique and instantly sent pain rippling through his mind, causing him to stumble. As expected of a cultivator at the peak stage of the low extreme and someone who had tempered his body hundreds of times with secret techniques, the old man's spirit was extremely stable. Unlike the youth, he wasn't stunned. This was also in part due to the relatively long distance between him and Ling Han. Otherwise, the effects of the technique would definitely have been more powerful. Ling Han caught up and slashed with his sword. It was also a level 1 god tool, and after he activated it, its divine patterns lit up and exuded an impressive might. The old man had no desire to skirmish with Ling Han. He only had one thought right now, and that was to leave the mystery realm and report the secret of Ling Han's spatial god tool to the Luo clan. Ling Han extended his hand and activated his divine patterns of gravity. The old man from the Luo clan instantly stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Having gravity suddenly change while one was sprinting at full speed was extremely fatal. Ling Han immediately caught up and slashed with his sword. There was a brilliant flash. The mysterious 3000. The old man had no choice but to turn around and parry with his divine sword. His battle prowess wasn't worse than Ling Han's, and with his full-strength strike, he wasn't suppressed by Ling Han at all. Rather, he even enjoyed a slight advantage. After all, he was a specialized lackey whom the Luo clan had raised using a huge amount of resources. If he couldn't even resist for a while, then he would be far too trashy. You only forcefully advanced to the immortal level by using mountain river stones, and you don't know how to control regulations at all. The old man was extremely ferocious after being forced into a battle. Every strike from his sword was precise and deadly. Ling Han smiled and said, "Regulations are only a part of battle prowess." However, battle prowess isn't merely as simple as utilizing regulations. He continued to harass the old man with his divine patterns of gravity, forcing him to continuously adjust his movement techniques. Chapter 973, I'll grant you a life of glory. Chapter 973, I'll grant you a life of glory. When elites fought, a difference of 1 millimeter was the difference between life and death. The turn of events was mainly due to Ling Han's strength being far above that of the old man from the Luo clan. As a result, the effects were obvious when he activated the power of his divine patterns of gravity. If it weren't for his superior strength, the results definitely wouldn't have been so stark. As the saying went, enough power would defeat a myriad of techniques. When one's power reached a certain level, all kinds of techniques would become meaningless. Ling Han's power wasn't that impressive yet, but it was still more than enough to affect the movements of the old man from the Luo clan. Detestable brat. The old man had already been cut several times, and he appeared extremely disheveled as his head of white hair billowed in the air. You've offended the Luo clan, and you'll definitely die a horrid death. Not only you, but even your parents will be slaughtered. Your women will become playthings, and your descendants will be slaves for all eternity. The Luo clan has existed for millions of years, and it's not a force that a bastard from a small world can sway or challenge. Ling Han's expression instantly became cold. What a toxic tongue. He unleashed his 10,000 techniques return to one, and a sword ray instantly transformed into a thick streak that slashed toward the old man. When he was in the shattering void tier, he still needed to condense his origin power for a short moment before being able to unleash the 10,000 techniques return to one. Now, however, he could use it at will. What did this mean? This meant that the 10,000 techniques return to one already didn't consume much of his origin power. Thus, he could unleash it as he desired. At the same time, this also meant that the power of this technique was relatively weaker. There was no helping it, however, as this was only a sword technique of the Sun Moon tier. How powerful could it be? Anyhow, the might of this strike was still impressive, and it raised Ling Han's battle prowess to the level of 5 stars. Peng! 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 The old man's expression changed drastically after being struck numerous times. Why you re a 5-star genius, he stammered in astonishment. He was a sub-minor level above Ling Han, and was also a 4-star genius himself. However, he was only evenly matched, perhaps even at a slight disadvantage when facing Ling Han right now. Thus, there was only one explanation. That was, his opponent was a 5-star genius. This was far too frightening. Even the left and right ministers, as well as the 7 generals, were only 4-star geniuses. Only the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire had reached the legendary level of 5 stars. This kind of enemy. He definitely had to annihilate him in the cradle. Otherwise, the Luo clan would be condemned to eternal damnation. 5 stars. Ling Han scoffed. He didn't unleash the ultimate arrow of the annihilating dragon star arrow to frighten the old man, or else it was even possible that he would faint in terror. However, secret techniques were all restricted by tiers. For example, the 3 styles of black origin that he was using now could raise his battle prowess by 1 star. When he reached the heavenly body tier, though, the might of this technique would certainly fall dramatically, and definitely not have the same effects as now. Thus, only power was eternal, and only power was hard power. Ling Han nodded in his mind. It had been a wise decision to break through only after raising his power to 20 stars of the shattering void tier. He continued to harass the old man with his divine patterns of gravity, causing him to trip and stumble all over the place. As a result, the battle prowess of the old man took a huge hit. Raising one's battle prowess wasn't the only way to defeat enemies. Weakening the enemies was also a good tactic. For example, hadn't the 4 people from the Luo clan been planning on weakening the Lava Beast King with the Crimson Ground-locking net? They wanted to drag their opponent's battle prowess down to the same level as them, and then use their abundant experience to defeat them. However, they were unaware that the Lava Beast King had already reached the consummate level. Even with the Crimson Ground-locking net, it was still more likely that they would be defeated. The old man from the Luo clan received more and more wounds under Ling Han's relentless attacks. Eventually, Ling Han's sword pierced through his heart. He grabbed the blade of the sword as hatred seeped from his eyes. Ha 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 ha. Being a 5-star genius is not necessarily a good thing. If others learn of this, countless people will target and try to kill you. I'll wait for you in the netherworld. He drew his last breath after uttering this threat. Ling Han lightly shook his sword and placed it back into the Black Tower. "There's no need for you to worry," he said softly. "When I'm strong enough, I'll obliterate the Luo clan first and let them accompany you." He retrieved the spatial spirit tools of the 4 Luo clan members. There were several hundred true origin stones as well as an ordinary mountain river stone inside. He shook his head in disappointment. He himself already had 10 special attribute mountain river stones. He started refining the crimson ground locking net after returning to the depths of the cave. It was a decent item that could weaken the enemy's cultivation level by quite a significant amount. The only uncertainty was the limit of its abilities. Would it work against elites of the Sun-Moon tier? With this, I can easily suppress even great elites of the high extreme. Ling Han turned his attention to the pitch-black boulder. This boulder stuck out like a sore thumb in this environment, so it naturally attracted his attention. Moreover, why did the lava beast king lie on top of it? Why did mountain river stones appear on top of it? He tried to lift the stone, but was unable to. Is it fused to the ground, or does it have an astonishing weight? Ling Han tried to wrap his divine sense around the boulder. As long as this succeeded, he would be able to bring the boulder into his black tower regardless of how much it weighed. The environment here was harsh, though Ling Han's physique was completely unaffected by it. However, his divine sense hadn't reached such a powerful level yet, and he instantly felt a sharp pain when it came into contact with the scorching lava in the depths underground. He immediately felt like retracting his divine sense. However, Ling Han forcefully suppressed this urge, and continued to expand his divine sense. His divine sense spread out bit by bit. After 30 minutes, a smile finally spread across his face. Wang. The pitch-black boulder instantly vanished. He peered over, and found that a 21-meter deep crater had already appeared in the ground. There was a swirl of black at the bottom. It was unclear whether it was water, metal, or something else entirely. What was clear was that it was frighteningly profound. Ling Han tossed a rock into the crater. Pa! The rock instantly exploded into smithereens. Ling Han was stunned. One had to realize that the composition of the mountains and rocks here was relatively stable. At least, he could only create some sparks when he struck them with his full strength. Now, however, the rock had exploded on impact. Its destructive power is terrifying. Wang. An astonishing sight suddenly appeared at this moment. A human face floated up from under the black surface, yet the black surface appeared to possess startling flexibility. It continued to stretch further and further, yet it didn't break no matter how far it stretched. Although the face appeared normal in every aspect, it had a nose, a mouth, and eyes. It was far too large. How large was the black boulder from before? This face was only a tiny bit smaller than it. It was larger than a manhole cover, and it was hard to fathom just how astonishing the true size of this person's body was. Even though they were separated by a layer of something, Ling Han could still sense the formidable aura that face was exuding. This feeling almost caused his soul to tremble. So powerful. This person has definitely surpassed the Sun-Moon tier, and perhaps even the heavenly body tier. Ling Han suddenly came to a realization. That black boulder wasn't placed here merely for its looks. Rather, it was placed here to suppress this cage or passageway. After pushing up around 9 meters or so, the face finally reached its limit, and was unable to advance any further. The face smiled and started to speak. However, no sound traveled out. After a short moment, however, a voice suddenly sounded in Ling Han's mind. "Lowly human, help me open this passageway, and I'll grant you a life of glory." Ling Han chuckled, and said, "Is this how you ask for help?" Chapter 974, Demon Master Zhen Yi. Chapter 974, Demon Master Zhen Yi. Ling Han didn't possess the ability to make his divine sense penetrate the black surface. It was a surface that could easily shatter the rocks here, and his divine sense would definitely be obliterated if it came into contact with it. From this, it could be seen just how much more powerful than him the person on the opposite end was. However, that person couldn't cross over to his side, or else they wouldn't have tried to entice him to begin with. "Lowly human, do you know who I am?" The face opened its mouth to speak, but his voice only traveled into Ling Han's mind after a short moment. Open the passageway for me, and I'll grant you a country to rule. Ling Han was extremely interested in this person's identity. Oh, who are you? His voice and divine sense were unable to travel to the opposite end, yet the person opposite him was far too powerful, and they were able to discern his words. I'm one of the most powerful people in the world. You may refer to me as Demon Master Zhen Yi. Ling Han was startled, and said, You're from the Netherworld. Generally speaking, only beings from the Netherworld would refer to themselves as demons. In the Netherworld, the term demon wasn't derogatory. Rather, it was a symbol of power, and those with the title of demon were treated like gods. So, what rank was Demon Master? Ling Han wasn't sure, but he knew that Demon Master Zhen Yi was potentially more powerful than the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. According to legends, this mystery realm was created by a great elite of the Genesis tier. Thus, it was extremely likely that this location was the weak point between the immortal realm and the Netherworld. It could potentially be opened up and transformed into a passageway between the two realms. If that's the case, then is this black surface the barrier between the immortal realm and the Netherworld? Ha 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 ha. Correct. I'm an elite who can command seas and waves in the Netherworld. Human, hurry up and assist me in opening a passageway. I can grant you the identity of a demon servant and even bestow you with supreme demonic arts. Demon Master Zhen Yi tempted. Have you become stupid from practicing demonic arts? Ling Han derided. I think it's best if you stay on that side. Who, man? Demon Master Zhen Yi roared. This barrier can't hold me back much longer, and it's only a matter of hundreds or perhaps thousands of years. I gave you a chance to obtain eons of glory, yet you foolishly rejected me. When I break out, I'll definitely toss you into a demonic prison and have you suffer unbearable torture. I'll wait for you. Ling Han smiled, and said, Also, what kind of demon master are you? You're actually threatening me, a person who's only at the lowly rank of the mountain river tier. I feel so honored. Demon Master Zhen Yi was rendered speechless. If he wasn't in such a bind, how would he need a cultivator of the mountain river tier to help him? He humphed, and said, Human, this is your last chance. Don't ruin your own future. After learning of this person's identity, how could Ling Han still help him? He turned his attention to the internal world of the Black Tower, where he could see a series of extremely complicated divine patterns on the bottom of the black boulder. No wonder it was able to suppress this place. Ling Han didn't dare be too greedy. With a single thought, the black boulder materialized in the air and fell toward the crater. Fury spread across Demon Master Zhen Yi's face. However, his expression was quickly blocked by the black boulder. Peng! The black boulder crashed down and forcefully pushed Demon Master Zhen Yi back down. The crater instantly disappeared from sight. No! Demon Master Zhen Yi's voice reverberated in Ling Han's mind. However, it was abruptly cut off after a short while. It was clear that the black boulder possessed an outstanding suppression ability. Ling Han sat down and pondered for a moment. Then, he stood back up. If this mystery realm existed to suppress the passageway between the two realms, why did it allow people to enter? Moreover, there were even valuable mountain river stones in this place. Wasn't it purposefully enticing people to come? However, if it was presented as a mystery realm that couldn't be entered, people would perhaps try everything in their power to break in. After all, humans had strange reasonings, and they were hell-bent on entering the places that forbid entry. Besides, limiting the opening time to once per decade and the highest rank to the low extreme of the mountain river tier, this place wouldn't be affected much anyway. Ling Han was a special case. As the saying went, diversion was better than obstruction. Right now, everyone's attention was focused on the mountain river stones, so they naturally wouldn't pay attention to what this mystery realm was suppressing. However, this wasn't a permanent solution, and the barrier would eventually be shattered one day. Ling Han started to leave the cave. He had raked in a huge amount of benefits this time, obtaining a whopping 8 mountain river stones, 7 of which were special attribute mountain river stones. In addition, he had also obtained some spiritual meat, which he could use when he attempted to break through to the immortal level of body arts after getting back. He came across a few people on his way out. They were naturally people who were looking for treasures. They were extremely wary of him, and hurriedly walked off after passing by his side. Who would dare to relax their guard in this place? After a few hours, Ling Han finally arrived at the mouth of the gigantic cave. Two women were sitting next to each other on a boulder nearby. Both were stunningly beautiful. One was charming in a pure and naive way, while the other was enchanting in a seductive way. The styles of their beauty were completely different. They were none other than Shui Yenyu and Hu Feiyun. Ling Han, you finally came back out. Sister Shui and I have been waiting for so long. Hu Feiyun immediately started to complain. Ling Han smiled at Shui Yenyu and said, "Sorry for making you worry." "I wasn't worried." Shui Yenyu was extremely stubborn, and she didn't admit her feelings no matter what. How was it? How was it? Did you kill that big ugly beast?" Hu Feiyun hurriedly asked. They had waited for a long time, so they naturally wanted to know the results. Shui Yenyu smiled and said, "That lava beast king is at the peak stage of the high extreme. How can it be killed? Being able to steal a mountain river stone is already extremely fortunate." Ling Han acted as if he were going to pinch Shui Yenyu's pretty face. "You think that lowly of your husband's abilities? How should I punish you?" Shui Yenyu hurriedly jumped aside. Her face flushed red, and she scolded, "Pervert." Ling Han chuckled and said, "This is perverted. You're still too innocent." Shui Yenyu couldn't help but recall the time he kissed her and the time something pushed against her. Her face felt hot, and her eyes rippled in an enchanting manner. Ling Han didn't dare keep looking. She was far too alluring, and he was truly afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself and end up dragging her into the Black Tower, where he would reveal his demonic claws. "Where to now?" "Windmill Mountain is the closest to us." Ling Han looked at the map and pointed at some location. Windmill Mountain was another location that produced special attribute mountain river stones. It had a total of 18 peaks, which were organized in the shape of a windmill. Half was underground, and half was above the ground. It would rotate once every set period of time. When it rotated, it would produce terrifying winds that could easily tear cultivators to shreds. Thus, it was extremely difficult to obtain mountain river stones from this location. In fact, it was even more dangerous than the Flame Cave, and there was a risk of death at every turn. The special attribute mountain river stones it produced were of the metal element, and they would allow cultivators to obtain divine patterns of sharpness. These divine patterns could dramatically increase the damage of one's attacks. The group of three set off once again. However, before they had even made it halfway, they felt an indescribable power bearing down upon them. Shoo! They vanished from where they were, and when they reappeared, they had already arrived in a land of wilderness. They weren't alone, and there were at least 1,000 others who were also looking around in confusion. Meanwhile, the mighty figures who had brought them here all started to leap over. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm had closed. It finished just like that. Ling Han felt that this was a great pity. There was a total of 6 locations that produced special attribute mountain river stones in the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, yet he had only gone to 2 of them. This wasn't enough. However, he instantly felt several bursts of killing intent lock onto himself. Shua! A sword viciously slashed over, clearly intending to end his life. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.